The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. But what happens when something from beyond the stars arrives? Something that moves faster than thought itself, powered by an energy the Force cannot touch? The first sign was a crimson streak that tore through the upper atmosphere of Coruscant, like a wound in reality. Traffic control sensors registered the anomaly for exactly 0.3 seconds before it vanished from their screens. No hyperspace signature. No engine trail. Just raw, impossible speed that defied every law of physics the Republic understood. In the Jedi Temple, Master Yoda's ears twitched. Across the meditation chamber, Mace Windu's eyes snapped open. They had both felt it, a disturbance in the Force unlike anything in their centuries of experience. Not dark side. Not light. Something other. A presence, Yoda murmured, his ancient voice troubled. From beyond our galaxy, it comes. The streak of crimson lightning crashed into the lower industrial levels of Coruscant with enough force to shatter Duracrete and scatter vendors in the marketplace. When the dust cleared, a figure staggered to his feet, his red suit torn and smoking, lightning still crackling across his body in dying arcs. Barry Allen's head spun. The Speed Force connection felt wrong, stretched thin like a rubber band pulled across dimensions. He could still feel it, that familiar vibration of infinite velocity, but it was distant, muted, like trying to run underwater. "Okay," he gasped, steadying himself against a building. That was not Central City. Around him, crowds gathered, aliens of species he'd never seen, Twi'leks, Rhodians, a massive Wookiee, all staring at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Above, sleek speeders floated past towers that stretched into a sky filled with ships. Barry's scientific mind raced, cataloging details. Different stars, different constellations. The air tasted different, felt different. This wasn't Earth. This wasn't even his universe. "Great," he muttered. "I really broke reality this time." Before he could take another step, a Republic gunship descended, and clone troopers in white armor surrounded him, weapons raised. Their movements were efficient, trained, identical. "Hands where we can see them," the lead trooper commanded. Barry raised his hands slowly, even as he calculated 17 different ways to disarm them all in under a second. But his connection to the Speed Force flickered, weakened by whatever dimensional barrier he'd crossed. He was still fast, incredibly fast, just not fast enough to be careless. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Barry said, keeping his voice calm. "I'm just really lost." A figure stepped from the gunship, robes flowing, a cylindrical weapon hanging from their belt. Barry recognized the aesthetic immediately. He'd seen enough sci-fi movies to know a lightsaber when he saw one. But seeing one in person, in what appeared to be a very real alien city, was something else entirely. The Jedi was a young Togruta woman with blue and white headtails. Her eyes studied him with sharp intelligence. "Lost," she repeated, her hand resting near her weapon. "You just fell from the sky like a meteor, and you're lost?" "Yeah, actually," Barry said. "I know how that sounds, but..." She moved faster than a normal human could, but to Barry's speed-enhanced perception, it was almost slow motion. Her hand reached for his arm, and he felt something. An energy that wasn't the Speed Force, but somehow just as fundamental, brush against his consciousness. The Jedi's eyes widened. "You're not from this galaxy." "Give the lady a prize," Barry said. Then, more seriously, "Look, I really am not a threat. I'm a hero where I come from. I help people. I just had an accident with some interdimensional travel and ended up here." "Interdimensional travel," the Jedi said flatly. "Right. The Council is going to love this." Within an hour, Barry found himself in a Republic transport, heading toward the massive Jedi temple that dominated Coruscant's skyline. Through the viewport, he watched the city planet sprawl in every direction, a vertical labyrinth of civilization that made Central City look like a small town. The young Jedi, Ahsoka Tano, she'd introduced herself, sat across from him, studying him with open curiosity. "So, you can run fast," she said. "How fast?" Barry considered lying, then figured honesty was his best bet. Fast enough to vibrate through walls, fast enough to travel through time, apparently across dimensions too. Fast enough that most people can't even see me move. Ahsoka whistled low. And you use this power to help people? That's the idea, Barry said. I'm a forensic scientist by day, superhero by night. Or day. Whenever crime happens, really. The schedule's pretty flexible. A scientist, Ahsoka said thoughtfully. That might help your case with the council. They're not going to know what to make of you. Join the club, Barry muttered. I don't know what to make of me right now either. As the transport docked at the temple, Barry felt that strange energy again, stronger here, woven through the very air like an invisible web. It pressed against his senses, and his Speed Force connection flickered in response, as if the two energies couldn't quite coexist in the same space. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Jedi Council chamber was circular, with seats arranged around the perimeter and massive windows overlooking the city. 12 Jedi Masters turned their attention to Barry as he entered, and the weight of their combined scrutiny was almost physical. At the center of it all sat a small, ancient being with green skin and pointed ears. Master Yoda. Even without knowing anything about this galaxy, Barry could feel the power radiating from him. Barry Allen, Mace Windu said, his voice deep and measured. Ahsoka has given us her report. You claim to be from another dimension entirely. I know it sounds crazy, Barry said, but it's the truth. Where I come from, there are no Jedi, no Force, just meta-humans, people with extraordinary abilities. I got mine from a particle accelerator explosion. It connected me to something called the Speed Force, an extra-dimensional energy that gives me my speed. Yoda's eyes narrowed. This Speed Force, feel it we cannot. Outside the Force, it exists. From what I can tell, yeah, Barry said. The Force, I'm assuming that's what I keep feeling around you guys. It's interfering with my connection. I'm still fast, but not as fast as normal. It's like the two energies don't mix well. Convenient, said a Nautilon Jedi Master. You arrive with unverifiable claims of power that we cannot sense or measure. I can prove it, Barry said. Before anyone could respond, he tapped into the Speed Force, that distant, muted connection, and moved. To the Jedi, he simply vanished. One instant in the center of the chamber, the next standing behind Mace Windu's chair, then beside Yoda, then back in the center. The entire circuit took perhaps 2 seconds of real time, but to Barry, it felt sluggish, weak. Back home, he could have circled the planet in that time. The Jedi Masters were on their feet, lightsabers ignited in a chorus of humming energy. Barry raised his hands immediately. Sorry, I just wanted to show you I wasn't lying. I'm not a threat. Slowly, the lightsabers deactivated. Yoda chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. Fast, you are indeed. But threaten us, you could not. See you move, the Force allows. Predict you, it does. Barry filed that away. The Force gave them precognition. That was going to be interesting. Young Allen, Yoda continued, a mystery you are. But dangerous times these are. A war rages across the galaxy. Trust easily, we cannot give. I understand, Barry said, but I'm stuck here until I can figure out how to get home. And where I come from. When I'm somewhere, I help. It's what I do. So if there's a war, if people are dying, let me help. Mace Windu exchanged glances with several other council members. The Republic is fighting the Separatist Alliance, a coalition of systems that have broken away under the leadership of Count Dooku, a former Jedi turned to the dark side of the Force. We are stretched thin across 1,000 battlefronts. Then you need all the help you can get, Barry said. Help from someone we cannot trust, Mace countered. Someone whose powers we do not understand, whose motives we cannot verify through the Force. Tested, he should be, Yoda said. Accompany Skywalker and his Padawan, he will. On Christophsis, battle rages. There, prove himself he can, or reveal his true nature. The Jedi Council chamber had fallen into that peculiar silence that Barry recognized from police briefings. The kind where everyone was thinking the same skeptical thoughts, but no one wanted to be the first to voice them. He stood in the center of the circle, acutely aware that he was being examined not just with eyes, but with this force energy he could feel pressing against his consciousness like invisible fingers. Mace Windu's expression remained carved from stone. You understand that Christophsis is an active war zone. We're not sending you there as a field trip. I've faced down metahuman terrorists, time-traveling speedsters, and a psychotic gorilla with telepathic powers, Barry said. I think I can handle a war zone. A psychotic gorilla? Ahsoka whispered to the Jedi beside her. Her voice just loud enough for Barry's enhanced hearing to catch. Is he serious? Completely serious, Barry confirmed, looking directly at her. Several Jedi shifted uncomfortably, apparently not used to people overhearing their whispered conversations. His name was Grodd. Long story. Kit Fisto, a Nautilon Jedi with a perpetual smile, leaned forward. Master Yoda, if I may, the boy's speed could be invaluable for reconnaissance. We've lost too many scouts to separatist ambushes. Precisely my concern, Mace said. We know nothing of his loyalties. For all we know, he could be a separatist weapon, a new type of droid designed to infiltrate the Republic. Barry couldn't help himself. Do I look like a droid? The separatists have created biological weapons before, Mace replied coldly. Your convenient arrival? Your claims of another dimension? It could all be programming. The Speed Force flickered inside Barry, responding to his frustration. Lightning crackled briefly across his fingertips, and every Jedi in the room tensed. Barry forced himself to breathe, to center himself the way he'd learned during his years as the Flash. Getting angry wouldn't help. I'm not a weapon, he said quietly. I'm not a droid. I'm just someone who got lost trying to save my own world and ended up in yours. But I get it. You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. So test me. Put me wherever you need to. I'll prove I'm here to help. Yoda's ears twitched, his ancient eyes studying Barry with an intensity that felt like it could see straight through to his soul. Sense deception in you? I do not. But clouded, the future is. Difficult to see. Your path remains. Perhaps that's precisely why we should utilize him, said Plo Koon, a Keldor Jedi whose voice resonated through a breathing mask. If the Force cannot clearly perceive his intentions, perhaps neither can our enemies. Count Dooku's precognition has cost us dearly in recent battles. Barry's detective instincts kicked in. Wait, this Count Dooku can see the future? The Force grants visions sometimes, Ahsoka explained. Trained Force users can sense attacks before they happen, see possible futures. It gives us an edge in combat. But if the Force can't get a clear read on me, Barry thought out loud, then maybe this Dooku can't either. I'd be unpredictable. An advantage, Obi-Wan Kenobi spoke up for the first time, his accent refined and measured. Or a liability if we cannot predict your actions either. Then we keep him on a short leash, Mace decided. Skywalker is already en route to Christophsis with the 501st. We'll send young Alan with Commander Tano as his escort. If he proves useful, we continue the arrangement. If he proves dangerous, Mace's hand rested meaningfully on his lightsaber. We deal with it. Barry met his gaze steadily. Fair enough. One more thing, Yoda said, his voice carrying a note of warning. The dark side of the Force, powerful it is. Seductive. If fall to temptation, you do. If manipulated by the Sith, you become. Stop you. We will. Permanently. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Barry understood the threat perfectly. I've faced down gods and monsters, he said. I've been offered unlimited power more times than I can count. I always choose to be a hero. That's not going to change just because I'm in a different universe. Yoda nodded slowly. See about that we shall. The transport to Christophsis was cramped, filled with clone troopers who eyed Barry with suspicion and curiosity in equal measure. They all had the same face, literally the same face, he realized with growing unease. but different paint jobs on their armor and different names stenciled across their chests. Ahsoka sat beside him, reviewing tactical data on a holographic display. "So," she said without looking up, "interdimensional travel. How does that work exactly?" Barry leaned back, grateful for the distraction from the clone's stares. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. The Speed Force lets me move fast enough to break through dimensional barriers, but it's not an exact science. I was trying to fix a timeline fracture in my universe when something went wrong. Next thing I knew, I was here." "Timeline fracture," Ahsoka repeated. "You can travel through time?" "Yeah, but it's dangerous. Every time I do it, I risk creating paradoxes, alternate timelines, or worse. I try to avoid it unless absolutely necessary." Ahsoka finally looked at him, her blue eyes sharp with intelligence. "And yet you tried it anyway." "People were going to die," Barry said simply. "A lot of people. I had to try." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I understand that. The Jedi Code teaches us to protect life above all else, even if it means risking our own. Sounds like we have something in common. Then, maybe," Ahsoka said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Let's see if you can keep up on the battlefield first." The planet Christophsis appeared through the viewport, a crystal world glittering with geometric cities and massive mineral formations. It would have been beautiful if not for the pockmarks of orbital bombardment and the swarms of Republic and Separatist ships engaged in deadly combat above its surface. "Buckle up," the clone pilot announced. "We're going in hot." The transport shook violently as it plunged through the debris field. Barry's speed-enhanced perception let him track every piece of shrapnel that came within meters of the hull, every laser blast that lit up the darkness. His fingers gripped the armrest, calculating trajectories and impact probabilities without conscious thought. "You look nervous," Ahsoka observed. "I don't usually ride," Barry admitted. "I'm usually the one doing the moving." "Well, try not to vibrate through the hull. I'd hate to lose our mystery guest before we even land." They broke through the atmosphere into a war zone that made Barry's stomach clench. Crystal towers lay shattered across the landscape. Droid armies marched in perfect formation, while clone troopers held defensive positions behind hastily erected barricades. Laser fire crisscrossed the air in deadly patterns, and explosions bloomed like horrible flowers across the crystalline terrain. The transport touched down in a secured landing zone, and Barry followed Ahsoka into organized chaos. Medics rushed wounded clones toward field hospitals. Officers shouted coordinates and tactical updates. Artillery emplacements fired toward distant droid positions with mechanical precision. And standing at the center of it all, directing troops with confident authority, was a young man with a scar over his right eye, and a presence that radiated power even to Barry's non-force-sensitive perception. Anakin Skywalker. "Snips!" Anakin called as they approached, his voice carrying warmth despite the carnage around them. Then his eyes landed on Barry, and his expression shifted to confusion. "Who's your friend?" "Long story," Ahsoka said. "This is Barry Allen. He's from another dimension. The Council wants us to babysit him." "Another dimension," Anakin repeated flatly. "Right. Sure. Why not? We've got evil Sith Lords and droid armies. Might as well throw in dimensional travelers, too." Barry extended his hand. "I know this is weird. Trust me. It's weird for me, too. But I can help. That's what I do." Anakin looked at the offered hand for a moment, then shook it. His grip was firm, calloused. "Anyone who wants to help fight the Separatists is fine by me. Just try to keep up." The words were barely out of his mouth when an explosion rocked the command post. A clone trooper shouted, "Droidekas, East Perimeter." Barry didn't think. He just moved. The world slowed to a crawl as Barry tapped into the Speed Force. Even diminished by dimensional interference, the connection flooded his body with that familiar electric rush. The explosion that had just detonated became an expanding sphere of fire and shrapnel, moving at what seemed like a lazy drift. Clone troopers were mid-dive toward cover, their bodies suspended in the molasses of superspeed perception. And rolling toward the command post came 3 spherical droids that unfolded into walking weapon platforms, droidekas, Ahsoka had called them. Energy shields shimmered around their mechanical bodies as they raised twin blaster cannons, already firing. Barry ran. To everyone watching, he simply vanished. One moment, standing beside Anakin. The next, a crimson blur weaving through the battlefield like lightning given form. He reached the first droideka in what felt like several seconds to him, but was actually a fraction of one. His fist connected with the droid's central processor, enhanced by velocity, and the entire machine crumpled inward like aluminum foil. The second droideka's shield gave him pause. He tried to phase through it, vibrating his molecules to slip between the energy barrier's frequency, but the speed force connection flickered. Wrong universe, wrong physics. The shield held. Fine. Plan B. Barry circled the droideka at super speed, looking for weaknesses. The shield generator there. A small projector on the droid's back. He grabbed a discarded blaster rifle from the ground, moved behind the droideka before it could track him, and fired point blank at the generator. The shield collapsed, and Barry delivered a spinning kick that sent the machine tumbling into a crystalline wall. The third droideka had begun tracking his movements. Not perfectly. He was still moving far too fast for its targeting computers. But it was learning, predicting. Barry felt a laser bolt pass within inches of his shoulder. These things adapted quickly. He needed to end this now. Barry circled wide, building speed, then charged straight at the droideka's shield. At the last possible moment, he slid beneath it like a baseball player stealing home, grabbed the droid's legs, and wrenched them out from under it with enhanced strength. The droideka crashed onto its back, weapons firing uselessly at the sky, and Barry ripped out its central processor. Time snapped back to normal speed. To Anakin and Ahsoka, Barry had disappeared and reappeared in the space of a heartbeat. 3 droidekas lay in smoking ruins. Barry stood among them, lightning still crackling across his suit, breathing hard. "Okay," Anakin said slowly. "That's useful." Clone troopers were staring, weapons half raised. One of them, his armor marked with blue stripes and the designation Rex, stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, what just happened?" "That," Ahsoka said, grinning despite the chaos around them, "is what keep up looks like." Barry straightened, feeling the speed force connection flutter and fade. That much exertion in this universe drained him faster than it should. He'd need to be more conservative with his powers until he understood how they worked here. 3 droidekas down, he reported, but those things are smart. They were learning my patterns. Droidekas are some of the Separatists' most dangerous units, Anakin explained, studying Barry with new respect. Their shields can deflect blaster fire and lightsabers. Most Jedi have to either destroy them quickly or retreat. You just punch them really fast, Barry finished. It's kind of my thing. Rex approached, his helmet tucked under one arm, revealing a face identical to all the other clones but somehow more weathered. "I don't care if you're from another dimension or another cantina. Any soldier who can take out 3 droidekas single-handedly is welcome in the 501st. Other clones murmured agreement, their suspicion giving way to cautious approval. Barry felt something loosen in his chest. He'd been useful. He'd proven himself, at least for the moment. "Don't celebrate yet," Anakin said, pointing toward the holographic tactical display. "The main Separatist force is regrouping for another assault. We're outnumbered 3-1, and our supply lines are cut off. The droidekas were just a scouting party." Barry moved closer to the display, his forensic training automatically analyzing the data. The Separatist positions formed a semicircle around the Republic base, with the heaviest concentration of forces on the eastern approach. Artillery positions marked in red. Droid factories in the city's northern sector churning out reinforcements. But something nagged at him. The deployment pattern was too perfect, too symmetrical. "This feels wrong," Barry said. Anakin raised an eyebrow. "Wrong how?" "The eastern approach. They've got the most forces there, but look at the terrain. Those crystal formations create natural choke points. They'd lose more droids pushing through there than anywhere else." "Maybe they're counting on overwhelming us with numbers," Ahsoka suggested. Barry shook his head. "Then why not split their forces more evenly? Why concentrate so heavily on the worst possible approach?" He traced the display with his finger, thinking out loud. Unless the Eastern assault is a feint. They want you looking there while the real attack comes from... He zoomed the hologram out, examining the western perimeter. The Separatist presence there was minimal, just enough to maintain the appearance of a siege line. But behind those forces, in the ruined crystal quarries, the topography offered perfect cover for a flanking maneuver. There, Barry said, pointing. They're going to hit you from the west while you're focused on defending the east. Anakin leaned in, studying the display with narrowed eyes. Rex, what do we have on the western perimeter? Just Torrent Company, sir. Maybe 24 men holding a 5-click line. Against how many droids, if Barry's right? If they're staging an assault force in those quarries? Rex's expression darkened. Could be thousands. They'd roll right through us. How did you see this? Ahsoka asked Barry. The Council's been analyzing Separatist tactics for months. No one caught this pattern. Barry shrugged. I'm a CSI, a crime scene investigator, back home. Pattern recognition is part of the job. You look at the evidence, find what doesn't fit, and work backward from there. A detective, Anakin said thoughtfully. Who can move faster than sensors can track and punch through droid shields? He grinned suddenly, the expression transforming his face from stern commander to something younger, more reckless. I like you, Barry Allen. You're weird, but I like you. Does this mean you trust me? Trust is a strong word, Anakin replied, but I trust your theory about the Western assault. Rex, pull 2 platoons from the Eastern defense and reinforce the West. Set up overlapping fields of fire in those quarries. When the droids attack, I want them walking into a kill zone. Yes, sir. Rex immediately began issuing orders through his comlink, and the organized chaos of the command post shifted into higher gear. Ahsoka activated her comlink. Master Obi-Wan, we may have a situation. The hologram of an older Jedi appeared. His beard neatly trimmed and his expression one of perpetual patience. Ahsoka, I trust Anakin hasn't done anything too reckless yet? Define reckless, Anakin called over. Hello, Anakin, Obi-Wan said with the tone of someone very used to their friend's antics. I see you're still alive. That's encouraging. We've got a dimensional traveler with super speed who thinks the Separatists are planning a flanking assault, Ahsoka said. Just a typical Tuesday. Obi-Wan blinked. I'm sorry, a dimensional what? Barry gave an awkward wave at the hologram. Hi, Barry Allen, long story. The short version is, I'm from another universe. I can run really fast, and I think you're about to be attacked from the west. To his credit, Obi-Wan barely hesitated. Well, that's certainly novel. Anakin, do you trust this analysis? It fits the evidence, Anakin said. And Barry just took out 3 droidekas in under a second. I'm inclined to take him seriously. Very well. I'll have Admiral Yularen reposition our artillery to cover the western approach. If this is a false alarm, we've merely shuffled some troops around. If it's accurate... Obi-Wan's expression hardened. We may have just avoided a massacre. The hologram flickered out. Anakin turned to Barry with an appraising look. You know, for someone who just arrived in our galaxy, you're adapting pretty quickly. I've had practice, Barry admitted. Back home, I'm always dealing with situations I don't fully understand. Metahuman criminals with bizarre powers, time paradoxes, parallel Earths. You learn to roll with the weird. Sounds like my life, Anakin muttered. Then, louder. All right, here's the plan. Barry, I'm assigning you to the western perimeter with Rex and Torrent Company. Your speed makes you perfect for rapid response. If we're right about the attack, you'll need to plug gaps in the line and take out high-value targets. I can do that. Ahsoka, you're with me on the eastern defense. We need to make sure the droids think we've bought their feint. Let them commit to the attack there before we spring the trap. Got it, Sky Guy. Barry followed Rex toward the western perimeter, weaving through trenches carved into the crystalline ground. The clones worked with mechanical efficiency, setting up heavy repeating blasters and checking power cells. Several nodded to Barry as he passed. Word had already spread about the droideka incident. So, Rex said conversationally, another dimension. That must be something. It's definitely something, Barry agreed. Your galaxy is bigger than mine, more diverse. We've got aliens back home, but nothing like this. What's your galaxy like then? Barry thought about Central City, about Earth, about the relatively small scope of his usual adventures. Smaller, more contained, one species mostly, spread across one planet. Our threats tend to be individuals rather than galactic wars. Sounds peaceful. It has its moments. Barry watched a clone trooper carefully position a thermal detonator. Can I ask you something? You all have the same face, the same genetics. Does that ever bother you? Rex was quiet for a moment. We're clones. We were created to fight and die for the Republic. But we're still individuals, Barry. We all have our own thoughts, our own choices. Some of us die brave, some of us die scared. That individuality, that's what makes us more than just droids with flesh. I'm sorry, Barry said. I didn't mean, it's fine. Rex clapped him on the shoulder. You're the first person outside the Jedi who's asked. Most people just see identical soldiers and leave it at that. They reached the western line, where a thin spread of white-armored troopers manned positions overlooking the crystal quarries. The ruined formations glittered in the dying sunlight, beautiful and treacherous. Barry's enhanced vision picked out movement in the deeper shadows. Lots of movement. Rex, he said quietly. They're already here. Rex raised his electrobinoculars. I see them. Thousands of battle droids. B-1s, B-2s, spider droids, at least 2 armored assault tanks. He lowered the binoculars, his expression grim. We were right, and we're about to have a very bad day. Barry felt the speed force surge in response to his rising adrenaline. Then let's make sure it's worse for them. The crystal quarries lay in twilight shadow, their geometric formations creating a maze of sharp angles and glittering surfaces. Barry crouched beside Rex behind a makeshift barricade of duracrete and shattered crystal, watching the Separatist army assemble in the valley below. From this distance, the battle droids looked almost comical. Skeletal metal figures with glowing optical sensors, moving in perfectly synchronized formations. There was nothing comical about their numbers. Goo mated 3,000 hostiles, Rex reported into his comlink, his voice steady despite the odds. Repeat, 3,000 minimum, requesting immediate reinforcement. Anakin's voice crackled back. Negative, Captain. We're engaged on the eastern line. The droids are hitting us hard. You were right about the feint, Barry. But it's a damn convincing one. Understood, sir. Torrent Company will hold the line. May the Force be with you, Rex. The comlink went silent. Around them, clone troopers checked their weapons with practiced efficiency. No one spoke about the mathematics of 24 soldiers against 3,000 droids. They all could do that math just fine. Barry's mind raced through possibilities. He was fast, but even he couldn't be everywhere at once. The Speed Force connection remained frustratingly weak, like trying to run with weights strapped to his legs. He could manage bursts of super speed, but sustained combat would drain him quickly in this universe. Rex, I need to know your capabilities, Barry said, falling into the tactical mindset that had saved his life countless times. What are we working with? Rex gestured to the defensive line. 23 troopers, including myself. 4 heavy repeating blasters. 2 shoulder-mounted rocket launchers. Enough thermal detonators to make things interesting. And 1 dimensional speedster of unknown capacity. The speedster runs best when he's got a plan, Barry said. Those AATs, the tanks, they're going to be the biggest problem. How do we kill them? Concentrated fire on the power generators underneath, or a rocket to the sensor array? But they've got shields, so you need to either overwhelm them with sustained fire, or get close enough for a precision shot. Barry grinned. I can get close. Figured you might say that. Rex pulled a pack of thermal detonators from his belt. Can you carry these at speed? I've carried people at speed. Explosives should be easy. Good. When those tanks come through, you get underneath them and plant these charges on the power generators. We'll provide covering fire. A clone trooper further down the line called out, Movement! They're advancing! The droid army surged forward like a mechanical tide, their metal feet crunching across crystal debris. Battle chatter in monotone voices. Roger, roger. Advance formation. Engage enemy position. The sound of thousands of droids speaking in unison was eerily synthetic, inhuman in its precision. "Hold your fire," Rex commanded. "Let them get close. Make every shot count." Barry watched the droids approach, his enhanced perception cataloging every detail. The B-1 battle droids formed the front ranks, cheap, disposable infantry. Behind them came the bulkier B-2 super battle droids, their wrist-mounted blasters already charging. The massive spider droids skittered on articulated legs, their central cannons rotating toward Republic positions. And at the rear, the armored assault tanks rolled forward on massive treads, their main guns elevated and ready. "This is insane," Barry muttered. "You're seriously going to fight all of them?" "It's our job," Rex said simply. Then shouting, "Fire!" The defensive line erupted in a storm of laser fire. Red bolts tore into the droid formation, and B-1s collapsed by the dozen, their thin armor no match for concentrated blaster fire. The heavy repeating blasters carved lanes of destruction through the advancing ranks. But the droids kept coming, stepping over their fallen comrades without hesitation. Return fire lit up the battlefield. Blue plasma bolts hammered into Republic positions, and Barry heard a clone scream as a shot found its mark. The soldier went down, and a medic immediately dragged him toward cover. "Barry, those tanks!" Rex shouted over the chaos. "We need them down now!" Barry didn't waste time responding. He tapped into the Speed Force and ran. The world shifted into that familiar slow-motion state. Blaster bolts became visible streaks of colored light, their trajectories clear as neon signs. He wove between them like a skier navigating slalom gates, each near miss calculated to the millimeter. The thermal detonators bounced against his chest in the makeshift satchel Rex had given him, their weight barely noticeable at super speed. The first AAT loomed ahead, its massive cannon tracking toward the Republic line. Barry slid beneath it like he was stealing home plate, the tank's undercarriage passing inches above his head. There, the power generator, a glowing core of energy surrounded by minimal armor plating. He slapped a thermal detonator onto it, twisted the activation pin, and rolled out from under the tank before time snapped back to normal. The explosion lifted the AAT 3 feet off the ground. It crashed back down in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, smoke billowing from its ruptured core. The main cannon fired one last time, the shot going wild and demolishing a crystal formation. "One down," Barry reported, already moving toward the second tank. This one had learned. As Barry approached, the AAT's defensive turrets swiveled with mechanical precision, tracking his movement. Not perfectly, he was still too fast for that, but close enough to make him adjust his trajectory. A blast grazed his shoulder, and pain exploded across his upper arm. Barry gritted his teeth and pushed harder, feeling the Speed Force connection strain. The second AAT was repositioning, trying to keep him in its firing arc. Smart programming. He needed a new approach. Instead of going underneath, Barry ran up the side of a crystal formation, using his momentum to launch himself onto the tank's top armor. The metal was hot beneath his hands, vibrating with the rumble of the engine. He found the sensor array, a cluster of lenses and receivers, and planted 2 thermal detonators directly on top. Then he jumped, hitting the ground at a run as the charges detonated. The tank spun in a circle, its sensors destroyed, firing blindly. Clone troopers concentrated their fire on its exposed flank, and the AAT ground to a halt, smoke pouring from multiple breaches. "2 down, 1 to go," Barry called. But the third tank had stopped advancing. It sat at the rear of the droid formation, its cannon elevated at maximum angle. Barry's combat instincts screamed a warning, and he watched in horror as the massive gun fired. Not at the defensive line, but at the crystal cliff face above it. "Rex, move! Move now!" The shell impacted the cliff with devastating force. Crystal shattered like glass, and tons of razor-sharp debris began cascading down toward the Republic position. Clones scattered, but there wasn't enough time, wasn't enough space. Barry ran faster than he ever had in this universe. He grabbed the first clone trooper and hauled him to safety, then the second, then the third. His muscles screamed. The Speed Force connection felt like a fraying rope. But he kept moving, kept pulling soldiers out of the death zone as crystal shards the size of speeder bikes crashed down around them. 12 troopers saved, 15, 20. His legs gave out on the 21st, and Barry collapsed as time resumed its normal flow. Around him, clones were checking themselves for injuries, looking at the pile of deadly crystal rubble that had nearly buried them alive. "Holy!" one trooper breathed. "He saved us! He saved all of us!" Rex knelt beside Barry, concern etched on his weathered features. "You all right?" "Just need a minute," Barry gasped. His entire body felt like one giant cramp. "Speed Force doesn't work right here. It's like running through molasses." "You just saved 21 lives running through molasses," Rex said. "I'd hate to see what you can do at full power." Blaster fire erupted again, and Rex was immediately back on his feet, returning fire. Barry forced himself up despite his protesting muscles. The droid army was still advancing, stepping over their destroyed tanks. The B-2 super battle droids had reached effective range, their wrist cannons pounding the defensive line with relentless fury. "We can't hold them!" a clone shouted. "There's too many!" Barry's scientific mind worked through the problem even as exhaustion clouded his thoughts. They needed an equalizer. Something to disrupt the droid's numerical advantage. His eyes fell on the destroyed AAT, specifically on its still glowing power core. "Rex? Those tank cores, they're fusion reactors, right?" "Yeah, highly unstable when damaged." "Why?" Barry grinned despite everything. "Because I have a really bad idea," he explained quickly, and Rex's eyes widened. "That's insane. You'll never survive that close to the blast." "I'm fast, remember? Trust me." Before Rex could argue, Barry was moving again. He raced to the nearest destroyed AAT, placed his hands on the ruptured power core, and began vibrating at super speed. The molecular agitation sent the already unstable reactor into critical cascade. Alarms began shrieking inside the dead tank. Barry grabbed the entire core assembly, easily 300 pounds of volatile technology, and ran straight toward the advancing droid army. To the droids, a crimson blur appeared from nowhere, moving faster than their targeting computers could track. By the time their primitive processors registered the threat, Barry was already in the center of their formation. He released the reactor core and ran. The explosion turned night into day. The fusion detonation vaporized hundreds of droids instantly, the shockwave sending hundreds more tumbling like toys. Crystal formations shattered from the blast pressure, creating secondary fragmentations that scythed through droid ranks. When the light faded, a crater 20 meters wide marked the spot where Barry had planted the reactor, and the droid advance had simply stopped. "Did he just..." a clone started. "He weaponized a fusion reactor," Rex finished, sounding somewhere between awed and horrified. "At super speed." The remaining droids, their formation shattered and their command structure disrupted, began a fighting retreat. Clone troopers pressed the advantage, their disciplined fire cutting down stragglers. Within minutes, the western approach was secured, littered with smoking droid parts and shattered crystal. Barry staggered back to the defensive line, every muscle in his body screaming. Rex caught him before he could fall. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen," Rex said. "And I've served with Anakin Skywalker." "Is it over?" Barry asked. "The western assault is broken. The eastern line..." Rex checked his comlink. "General Skywalker reports the droids are retreating there too. We won, thanks to you figuring out their strategy." Other clones were gathering now, and Barry found himself surrounded by men with identical faces, but vastly different expressions. Gratitude, respect, something approaching awe. One trooper removed his helmet, revealing a young face marked with a scar across the chin. "You saved my life," the trooper said, "when that cliff came down. I'm Fives." "Just doing what I do," Barry said, trying to downplay it despite his exhaustion. "Helping people." "You're not like the Jedi," another clone observed. "No offense to the generals, but you're different. You fight like us, with us." "The Jedi are heroes," Barry said carefully. "But where I come from, heroes don't stand apart from the people they protect. We stand with them." Rex's comlink crackled. "Captain Rex, bring your team and our new friend back to the command post. Anakin wants to debrief." "Roger that, sir." As they walked back through the Crystal City, now secured by Republic forces, Barry noticed separatist prisoners being escorted away. Alien species he didn't recognize, their expressions ranging from defiance to fear. He'd been so focused on the battle droids that he'd almost forgotten there were living beings on the other side of this war too. Rex, who are the Separatists? I mean, I know they're fighting the Republic, but why? Rex was quiet for a moment. That's a complicated question. The official answer is they're terrorists trying to destabilize the Republic. The real answer? He glanced around, then lowered his voice. Some of them have legitimate grievances. Corruption in the Senate, systems that felt ignored or exploited. Count Dooku convinced them the only solution was to break away. But you fight them anyway. We're soldiers. We follow orders. The Jedi lead us, and the Jedi serve the Republic. Rex's tone suggested he'd had this conversation with himself many times. But yeah, sometimes I wonder what we're really fighting for. They reached the command post to find Anakin and Ahsoka waiting, both looking worse for wear but victorious. Anakin's robes were scorched, and Ahsoka had a cut across her forehead that a medic was treating. "The hero returns," Anakin said, grinning. "Rex's report made it sound like you fought half the droid army single-handedly." "I had help," Barry said. "Your clones are incredible. Disciplined, brave, professional. Back home I usually work alone. This was different." "Good different?" Ahsoka asked. Barry thought about 21 lives saved, about clones like Fives and Rex who treated him as one of their own despite his strangeness. "Yeah, good different." Anakin's expression grew more serious. "Your tactical analysis was right. The Separatists were using the Eastern assault as a feint while they staged the real attack from the West. If you hadn't caught that pattern..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "I'm a forensic investigator," Barry explained. "I'm trained to look at evidence and find what doesn't fit. The deployment pattern was too clean, too obvious. It felt like misdirection." "A useful skill," Anakin said. "The Jedi rely on the Force to guide us, but the Force can be clouded. Having someone who can analyze situations without that bias, that's valuable." Barry seized the opening. "Speaking of the Force and being clouded, I've been thinking about something. You said Count Dooku can sense attacks before they happen, right? That he uses the Force to predict enemy movements?" "All Force users can to some degree," Ahsoka confirmed. "It's one of our primary advantages in combat. But you can't sense me clearly. Master Yoda said the Force has trouble reading my intentions because I'm from outside this universe." Barry's detective mind was piecing together implications. What if that's not just about me? What if there are other things the Force can't see clearly? Anakin's eyes narrowed. "What are you getting at?" "I don't know yet," Barry admitted. "But pattern recognition is about finding anomalies. And if the Force is the lens through which you view the galaxy, what happens when someone manipulates that lens? What could they hide?" The three of them were silent, the weight of that question hanging in the air. Around them, clone troopers worked to fortify positions and treat the wounded, unaware that Barry Allen had just planted a seed of doubt that would grow into something much larger. "That's a dangerous line of thinking," Anakin said finally. "The Jedi Council has relied on the Force for thousands of generations." "I'm not saying don't trust the Force," Barry said. "I'm just saying maybe don't trust it exclusively. Sometimes the evidence right in front of you matters more than mystical guidance." Ahsoka touched her comlink. "Master Obi-Wan is requesting our presence on the command ship. Admiral Yularen wants to discuss the battle results and our next deployment." As they walked toward the waiting transport, Barry felt the exhaustion settling deeper into his bones. The Speed Force connection had stabilized somewhat, but it remained frustratingly limited compared to his normal capabilities. He needed to find a way home. Back to his own universe where physics made sense and he could actually run at full speed. But looking at the clones who'd accepted him, at Ahsoka's confident stride, and Anakin's easy command presence, Barry realized something. These people were fighting a war they didn't fully understand, facing threats both external and internal. His detective instincts were screaming that something was deeply wrong with this entire conflict, and Barry Allen had never been able to walk away from a mystery, especially not one where innocent lives hung in the balance. "Hey, Anakin," he said as they boarded the transport. "This war you're fighting, Who started it? Like, really started it? Anakin frowned. Count Dooku and the Separatist Alliance. They attacked the Republic, and we defended ourselves. Right, but before that, what caused systems to want to separate in the first place? Corruption in the Senate, bureaucratic inefficiency, trade disputes that weren't being resolved. Anakin's voice carried frustration. The Republic has problems. Everyone knows that. But breaking away and starting a war isn't the solution. And who's in charge of fixing those problems? Barry pressed. Who has the authority to actually reform the Senate and address the corruption? The Supreme Chancellor, Ahsoka said. Chancellor Palpatine. He's been working to strengthen the Republic and end the war. Barry filed that away. Palpatine. He'd need to learn more about this Chancellor who had so much power during a galactic crisis. In his experience, when someone gained authority during chaos, it paid to look closely at who benefited from that chaos continuing. The transport lifted off, carrying them toward the Star Destroyer hanging in orbit above Christophsis. Through the viewport, Barry could see the crystal planet falling away beneath them, scarred by war, but still beautiful in its geometric precision. Somewhere out there, in this vast galaxy, were answers. About the war. About the Force. About how a dimension-lost speedster might find his way home. But first, he had a mystery to solve. Because every instinct Barry had developed over years of detective work was telling him the same thing. Something was very, very wrong with this war. The Venator-class Star Destroyer hung in orbit like a dagger pointed at the stars, its wedge-shaped hull bristling with turbolaser batteries and hangar bays. Barry pressed his face against the transport's viewport, watching the massive warship grow larger as they approached. Back home, he'd seen alien ships, Kryptonian scouts, Thanagarian cruisers, but nothing on this scale. This was a vessel built for conquest, wrapped in the aesthetics of a republic that claimed to stand for peace. The contradiction wasn't lost on him. They docked in the main hangar, where pilots scrambled around starfighters that looked like they'd been designed by someone who loved aggressive angles. Anakin led them through corridors filled with crew members who snapped to attention as the Jedi passed. Barry noticed how the clones and regular personnel alike looked at Anakin with a mixture of respect and genuine affection. This wasn't fear-based authority. These people followed him because they wanted to. General Skywalker, a clone officer, greeted them as they entered the bridge. Admiral Yularen is waiting in the strategy room. The bridge itself was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Dozens of crew members monitored holographic displays showing ship positions, planetary scans, and tactical data. At the center of it all stood a man in a crisp naval uniform, his posture military perfect and his gray hair immaculately groomed. Admiral Wolf Yularen turned as they entered, his sharp eyes immediately fixing on Barry. So this is our dimensional visitor. Anakin tells me you single-handedly disrupted the Separatist Western assault. I had a lot of help, Barry said. Your clone troopers are exceptional soldiers. They are, Yularen agreed. Though Rex's report suggests you're quite exceptional yourself. A man who can move faster than droid targeting computers and weaponize fusion reactors. He gestured to the holographic display table. We need to discuss what comes next. The display showed a star map with dozens of systems marked in red or blue. Red vastly outnumbered blue, and the red markers seemed to be spreading like an infection across the galactic arm. The Separatists are gaining ground, Yularen explained. For every victory like Christophsis, we lose 2 other systems. Our forces are stretched impossibly thin. The Jedi are performing miracles. But even miracles have limits. Barry studied the map with his investigator's eye, looking for patterns. The Separatist advances weren't random. They targeted strategic hyperspace routes, manufacturing worlds, and resource-rich systems. Someone with serious strategic acumen was directing this campaign. Who's running their military strategy? Barry asked. You mentioned Count Dooku leads them, but these movements suggest professional military planning. General Grievous, Anakin said, his voice darkening. A cyborg monster who collects lightsabers from the Jedi he's killed. He's ruthless, brilliant, and nearly impossible to predict. The Jedi can't predict him? Ahsoka shook her head. He's not Force-sensitive. He's part droid, part organic, all killer. He doesn't think like a living being, so the Force gives us less warning. Barry's mind raced. The Force couldn't predict droids or this Grievous character clearly. It couldn't read Barry's intentions. What else might slip through that mystical perception? What if someone who was Force-sensitive deliberately hid their intentions from other Force users? "What about your political leadership?" Barry asked. "How much strategic input does the Senate provide?" Yularen's expression soured. "The Senate debates while systems burn. They're more concerned with their own power bases than winning the war. If not for Chancellor Palpatine's emergency powers, we'd be paralyzed by bureaucracy." "Emergency powers," Barry repeated carefully. "What kind of powers?" "Executive authority to deploy military forces, negotiate treaties, and make command decisions without Senate approval," Yularen explained. "Temporary measures until the war ends." Every instinct Barry had developed investigating meta-human criminals screamed warning. Emergency powers that only lasted until the war ended meant whoever held those powers benefited from the war continuing. It was the oldest trick in the book: create a crisis. Position yourself as the solution. Consolidate authority. "Has anyone met this Chancellor Palpatine?" Barry asked, trying to sound casual. "I mean, in person?" "I serve him directly," Anakin said, and there was something in his voice, pride mixed with defensiveness. "He's been a mentor to me since I was a child. Palpatine is one of the few people in the Senate who actually cares about ending this war and protecting the Republic." Barry filed that away too. Palpatine had a personal relationship with one of the Republic's most powerful Jedi. Grooming, manipulation, or genuine mentorship. He needed more information before jumping to conclusions, but his cop instincts were tingling. "Admiral," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Coruscant. It's Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself." Yularen straightened. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted, and a figure appeared. An older man with a grandfatherly face, thinning hair, and eyes that seemed kind and weary in equal measure. He wore elaborate robes that spoke of political authority, and his expression radiated concern. "Admiral Yularen, General Skywalker," Palpatine said, his voice smooth and cultured. "I've received the reports from Christophsis. A remarkable victory, though I understand we owe much of it to an unexpected newcomer." Anakin stepped forward. "Chancellor, this is Barry Allen. He's from another dimension and arrived during a temporal accident. The Council is still evaluating him, but he proved his value on Christophsis." Palpatine's gaze fixed on Barry, and for just a fraction of a second, maybe a tenth of a second to normal perception, but crystal clear to Barry's speed-enhanced awareness, the Chancellor's expression changed. The grandfatherly warmth vanished, replaced by something calculating, predatory. Then it was gone so quickly that Barry almost thought he'd imagined it. Almost. "Fascinating," Palpatine said, the warmth back in his voice. "Another dimension entirely. The Force works in mysterious ways, bringing you to us in our hour of need. I look forward to meeting you in person. Mr. Allen, perhaps you can share insights about your world with the Senate." "I'd be happy to," Barry lied smoothly. His heart was racing, and not from exertion. That micro-expression, he'd seen it before in criminals trying to appear innocent, in psychopaths mimicking human emotion, in people wearing masks. "Anakin," Palpatine continued, "I have a new assignment for you. The Separatists are massing forces near the Ryloth system. The Twi'lek population is under siege, and we cannot abandon them. Take your fleet and provide relief. Show the galaxy that the Republic protects all its citizens." "Yes, Chancellor. We'll depart immediately. And Anakin, be careful. My sources indicate Count Dooku himself may be in the sector. After your encounter with him on Geonosis, I worry for your safety." "I can handle Dooku," Anakin said, his jaw tightening. "I know you can, my boy. May the Force be with you." The hologram vanished. Yularen immediately began issuing orders, and the bridge erupted into controlled activity as the fleet prepared for hyperspace jump. Barry pulled Ahsoka aside, keeping his voice low. "That was weird, right?" "What was weird?" "The way Palpatine looked at me. Just for a split second. Did you see it?" Ahsoka frowned. "I wasn't really paying attention." "Why?" Barry hesitated. He had no proof, just an instinct honed by years of reading suspects. But that instinct had saved his life more times than he could count. I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid from being in a different universe, but something felt off. The Chancellor is a good man, Ahsoka said firmly. He's been fighting Senate corruption for years. Anakin trusts him completely. Yeah, Barry said. That's what worries me. Before Ahsoka could respond, the ship's intercom crackled. All hands, prepare for hyperspace jump in 30 seconds. Barry gripped a nearby console as the star field through the viewport began to stretch. Reality twisted, and suddenly they were hurtling through a tunnel of blue and white light. Hyperspace, a method of faster-than-light travel that worked nothing like the Speed Force but achieved similar results. As the fleet raced toward Ryloth, Barry's mind refused to quiet. He cataloged everything he'd learned, a war that benefited whoever held emergency powers, a chancellor with a suspicious micro-expression, a Jedi who trusted that chancellor completely, and a mystical force that everyone relied on, but which had exploitable blind spots. In Central City, when Barry encountered a crime scene, he always asked the same question: who benefits? In this case, who benefited from the Clone Wars continuing? He needed to find out more about Palpatine, but carefully. Very carefully. Because if his instincts were right, if the kindly Chancellor was hiding something, then Barry had just attracted the attention of someone very dangerous. And unlike the Speed Force, the Force could sense intent. Which meant if Barry started actively investigating Palpatine, whoever was watching might notice. He needed evidence. Hard evidence that didn't require Force sensitivity to interpret. The kind of forensic proof that had put criminals away back home. Barry Allen was going to solve this mystery. He just hoped he survived long enough to expose the truth. Ryloth appeared through the viewport like a wound against the stars, half its surface burning orange beneath an eternal sunset, the other half locked in perpetual darkness. Barry watched the planet grow larger as the Republic fleet dropped out of hyperspace, and even from orbit, he could see the scarring of war. Smoke plumes rose from cities, and debris from destroyed ships orbited the planet in expanding clouds. The Separatists have been bombing civilian centers, Anakin explained, his voice tight with anger. They're trying to force the Twi'leks into submission through terror. That's a war crime, Barry said flatly. War crimes require someone to prosecute them, Ahsoka replied. The Separatists don't exactly answer to galactic law. The fleet moved into assault formation, and Barry felt the ship shudder as turbo-lacers began exchanging fire with Separatist vessels. Through the viewport, he watched starfighters, both Republic and Separatist, swarm like angry insects, weaving between capital ships in a deadly ballet. We need boots on the ground, Anakin said, studying the tactical display. The main Separatist base is here, in Lesu, the capital city. If we can take it out, we break their siege. What about Count Dooku? Yularen asked. The Chancellor said he might be in the sector. Then we deal with him if he shows up. Anakin turned to Barry. You up for another ground assault? I know Christophsis took a lot out of you. Barry checked his connection to the Speed Force. It had recovered somewhat during the hyperspace journey, though it still felt frustratingly limited. I can manage. What do you need? Reconnaissance. Your speed makes you perfect for scouting the Separatist base without being detected. Find us a weak point we can exploit. 20 minutes later, Barry was strapped into a Republic gunship alongside Rex, Ahsoka, and a squad of clone troopers. The ship dropped through Ryloth's atmosphere with stomach-churning speed, dodging anti-aircraft fire that lit up the darkening sky. LZ in 30 seconds, the pilot called. They hit the ground in a residential district that had been reduced to rubble. Barry's enhanced perception cataloged the destruction. Homes that had sheltered families, marketplaces that had bustled with life, all reduced to debris and ash. This wasn't a military target. This was terrorism. The Separatist command center is 3 clicks north, Rex said, pointing toward a massive fortress-like structure visible in the distance. Heavy droid presence, shield generators, automated defenses. It's a hardened position. Give me 10 minutes, Barry said. I'll scout it and report back. He ran before anyone could argue, tapping into the Speed Force despite the universe's resistance. The world blurred around him as he raced through the ruined city, dodging rubble and leaping over blast craters. His passage kicked up dust devils in his wake, but he moved too fast for any observers to track. The Separatist base loomed ahead, a converted government building now bristling with weapons emplacements and droid patrols. Barry slowed just enough to maintain super-speed perception while he circled the perimeter. Security was tight. B-1 battle droids marched in overlapping patrol patterns. B-2 super battle droids manned checkpoints. Spider droids stood sentry on the walls, but security systems always had weaknesses. Barry had learned that investigating meta-human criminals who thought they were untouchable. He found it on the eastern wall, a drainage system that fed into the building's lower levels. The grate was too small for a person to fit through normally, but Barry could vibrate through solid matter. The entrance would bypass the main security grid entirely. He was about to return to Rex when he heard voices inside the compound. His enhanced hearing picked up the conversation through an open window 3 stories up. "Count Dooku will arrive within the hour," a mechanical voice said. A tactical droid, Barry guessed. "He wishes to personally oversee the interrogation of the Twi'lek resistance leaders." "Excellent," another voice replied, this one organic and cultured. "The Count believes one of them has information about a Jedi operation. Once we extract that intelligence, we'll execute them publicly. Show the population what happens to those who resist." Barry's jaw clenched. Prisoners were about to be tortured and executed. That changed everything. He raced back to the Republic position, arriving in a gust of wind that startled several clone troopers. "Found a way in," Barry reported quickly. "Drainage system on the eastern wall. I can phase through the grate, but we've got a problem. Count Dooku is arriving within the hour, and they've got prisoners they're planning to torture and execute." Anakin's expression darkened. "Prisoners? Twi'lek resistance leaders. They think one has information about a Jedi operation. We have to get them out," Ahsoka said immediately. "Agreed," Anakin replied. "But if Dooku's coming, this changes from a reconnaissance mission to an assault. Rex, how long to get reinforcements here?" "Minimum 30 minutes, sir. And that's if we can break through the Separatist air defenses." "We don't have 30 minutes." Anakin looked at Barry. "Can you get inside alone? Locate the prisoners while we create a distraction?" Barry nodded. "I can do that, but if Dooku shows up, leave him to me," Anakin said, his hand moving to his lightsaber. "Dooku and I have unfinished business." "Sky Guy, the Council said we're supposed to avoid confronting Dooku directly," Ahsoka warned. "He's too dangerous." "The Council isn't here. And those prisoners are." Anakin turned to Rex. "Captain, prepare your men for assault. We hit them hard and fast from the west. Barry goes in through the eastern drainage, finds the prisoners, and gets them out. Ahsoka and I will engage any Jedi or Sith that show up." "Yes, sir." 10 minutes later, Barry crouched by the drainage grate while explosions echoed from the western wall. Rex's assault was underway, pulling droid forces away from Barry's entry point. He placed his hands on the grate and began vibrating his molecules, feeling the Speed Force connection strain as he forced his body out of phase with normal matter. The sensation was always disorienting, like becoming a ghost, existing partially outside reality. The grate's metal passed through him like water, and then he was inside, solidifying in a dark maintenance tunnel that smelled of chemicals and stagnant water. Barry ran through the complex at super speed, his enhanced perception mapping the layout. Service corridors branched off in multiple directions. He followed the sound of voices and the hum of security systems deeper into the building. He found the detention level 3 floors down, a row of cells protected by energy barriers and guarded by 4 B-2 super battle droids. Inside the cells, he could see Twi'lek prisoners, humanoid aliens with distinctive head tails, their skin ranging from blue to green to orange. Several showed signs of torture. Barry's anger flared. These weren't soldiers. They were civilians who'd refused to surrender their world. He moved before the droids could react. Super speed made him effectively invisible to their targeting systems. He grabbed the first droid's head and twisted, his enhanced strength combined with velocity ripping the mechanical skull clean off. The second droid managed to raise its weapon before Barry phased through it, vibrating his hand inside its chest cavity and destroying its central processor from within. The third and fourth droids fell in quick succession, one to a super-speed barrage of strikes that shattered its armor plating, the other to a piece of debris Barry threw at relativistic speed. The prisoners stared in shock as Barry solidified in front of their cells, lightning still crackling across his suit. "Okay," he said breathlessly. "Who speaks basic?" A Twi'lek man with green skin stepped forward. "I do. Who are you?" "Barry Allen. I'm with the Republic." "We're getting you out of here." The Republic sent one man? One very fast man. Barry examined the energy barrier controls. They were encrypted, but the Speed Force gave him accelerated perception. To his speed-enhanced mind, he had effectively infinite time to try different combinations. Within what felt like hours to him, but was actually 15 seconds, he cracked the code. The barriers dropped. "Let's move. Stay close to me, and when I say run, you run. Got it?" The prisoners nodded, filing out of their cells. Barry counted 12 total, not just resistance leaders, but families. A mother clutching a child, an elderly man who could barely walk. "Okay, new plan," Barry muttered. He couldn't carry all of them at super speed. He'd have to escort them normally, which meant fighting their way out. He led them toward the service corridors, but they'd barely made it 20 meters when alarms began blaring. Security doors slammed shut, and the corridor filled with battle droids emerging from hidden alcoves. "Run!" Barry shouted. He became a crimson blur, his fists and feet striking with enhanced force. Droids collapsed around him, but more kept coming. The prisoners ran behind him, and Barry positioned himself between them and the enemy fire, moving fast enough to deflect blaster bolts with pieces of debris. They reached a stairwell and began climbing. 2 floors up, 3. Barry heard heavy footsteps above and cursed, droidekas rolling down from the upper levels, their shields already deployed. "Get back!" Barry ordered the prisoners. He couldn't punch through the shields, and he was too exhausted to try vibrating through them. Think. Think like a CSI. What was the weakness? The shields protected against energy and projectiles, but they had to be anchored to the floor to function. If he removed the floor, Barry ran at the stairwell wall, building momentum, then delivered a super-speed kick to the structural supports. The duracrete cracked. He hit it again, and again. The wall began to collapse, and the floor beneath the droidekas crumbled. The droids tumbled through the gap, their shields useless against gravity. They crashed to the lower level in a tangle of mechanical limbs. "Come on!" Barry urged the prisoners upward. They emerged on the ground floor to find chaos. Rex's assault had penetrated the western defenses, and clone troopers were exchanging fire with droid forces throughout the building. Explosions shook the foundation. Barry led the prisoners toward the exit, but stopped dead when he saw the figure standing in the doorway. Count Dooku. The Sith Lord was exactly as Anakin had described. Tall, regal, with an aristocratic bearing and a curved lightsaber hanging from his belt. His eyes found Barry and narrowed with interest. "How curious," Dooku said, his voice cultured and dangerous. "You're the dimensional traveler I've been hearing about, the one the Force cannot clearly perceive." "Yeah, that's me," Barry said, positioning himself between Dooku and the prisoners. "And these people are leaving." "I think not." Dooku's hand extended, and Barry felt something grab him, an invisible force that lifted him off his feet and slammed him into the wall. The impact drove the air from his lungs. The prisoners screamed. Dooku walked calmly toward them, his lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss, its red blade casting bloody light across his face. "You see?" Dooku said conversationally. "I believe one of you has information I require, and I don't particularly care which one." Barry struggled against the Force grip, tapping desperately into the Speed Force. The two energies clashed, and for a moment, he felt the invisible hold weaken. He vibrated, phasing partially out of normal reality, and Dooku's concentration broke. Barry dropped to the ground and ran. Barry moved faster than he'd ever moved in this universe, the Speed Force burning through his system despite its weakened state. He grabbed the Twi'lek mother and her child, racing them past Dooku in a crimson blur, then returned for the elderly man, then 2 more prisoners. Each trip took precious seconds that felt like hours in his accelerated perception, his muscles screaming in protest. Dooku's lightsaber carved through the space where Barry had been microseconds before. The Sith Lord wasn't relying on sight. He was using the Force to predict movement, and even though Barry existed partially outside that mystical perception, Dooku's skill was terrifying. Each pass brought the red blade closer to connecting. 5 prisoners evacuated. 6, 7. Impressive, Dooku said, and he actually sounded pleased. You move like lightning itself. But even lightning can be contained. He thrust his free hand forward, and the Force erupted outward in a shockwave. Barry tried to phase through it, but Force energy didn't behave like normal matter. It caught him mid-step, and he tumbled across the corridor, crashing into the wall hard enough to crack the duracrete. Pain exploded through his ribs. Definitely cracked, possibly broken. Barry forced himself to his feet as Dooku advanced, the lightsaber humming with deadly promise. The Jedi think you're an asset, Dooku continued conversationally. But I see you for what you truly are, a wild variable in an ordered plan. Chaos incarnate. Count on chaos long enough, young man, and it inevitably turns against you. Barry's mind raced through his options. He couldn't fight a lightsaber-wielding Sith Lord in direct combat. Dooku was too skilled, too experienced, and the Force gave him precognition that Barry's speed couldn't fully overcome. He needed another approach. His eyes fell on a damaged power conduit sparking in the wall. Electricity. The Speed Force was essentially electrical energy given form. Maybe. You talk a lot for someone trying to kill prisoners, Barry said, buying time. That's the first rule of villainy, right? Explain your evil plan while the hero figures out how to beat you? Dooku smiled coldly. I'm not explaining my plan, Mr. Allen. I'm simply appreciating an interesting puzzle before I solve it. He attacked, the curved lightsaber moving in elegant, economical strikes. Barry dodged at super speed, but his exhaustion was catching up with him. The Speed Force connection flickered like a dying light bulb. He couldn't maintain this pace much longer. Dooku's blade passed within millimeters of Barry's throat. The heat was intense enough to singe his suit's collar. You're slowing down, Dooku observed. The Speed Force? Yes. I've gleaned that term from your thoughts. It's weakening. Dimensional travel takes its toll. Barry grabbed the sparking power conduit and channeled the electricity through his body, using it to temporarily boost his connection to the Speed Force. Lightning arced across his form, and he felt the familiar surge of velocity return. It wouldn't last long, but it didn't have to. He ran, not at Dooku. At the structural supports Rex's assault had already damaged. Barry delivered a series of super-speed strikes to the weakened pillars, and the ceiling began to collapse. Dooku's eyes widened fractionally, the only warning before tons of duracrete came crashing down. The Sith Lord raised his hand, using the Force to deflect the debris, but the effort divided his attention. Barry grabbed the last 5 prisoners and sprinted for the exit, his enhanced speed carrying them through the collapsing building. They emerged into the Ryloth twilight to find the battle in full swing. Clone troopers had secured the perimeter, and Republic gunships were landing to evacuate civilians. Barry deposited the prisoners with a medic, then collapsed against a piece of rubble, every muscle in his body trembling. Barry! Ahsoka ran over, her face smudged with soot. Are you okay? We saw the building collapse. Dooku was inside, Barry gasped. I got the prisoners out, but the rubble exploded outward. Count Dooku emerged from the destruction, his robes torn but his expression eerily calm. Lightning crackled around his fingertips, not the red and gold of the Speed Force, but purple tendrils of pure Force energy. Ahsoka Tano, Dooku said pleasantly. And our dimensional speedster. How fortunate. 2 prizes for the effort of 1. Get the prisoners to the gunships, Ahsoka ordered Barry, igniting her lightsaber. The green blade hummed to life. I'll handle him. Are you insane? He'll kill you. Probably, Ahsoka admitted. But that's what Jedi do. We stand between evil and the innocent. Before Barry could argue, a blue lightsaber ignited behind Dooku, and Anakin's voice cut through the chaos. If you want my Padawan, Dooku, you'll have to go through me first. Dooku turned and something like satisfaction crossed his features. Anakin Skywalker, I was hoping you'd come. Your training has progressed since our last encounter? You're about to find out, Anakin growled. The two Jedi attacked in perfect synchronization, their lightsabers creating a web of green and blue light. Dooku defended with casual elegance, his curved blade flowing from position to position with minimal wasted movement. He was a master duelist, and it showed. Barry watched in awe and horror. Lightsaber combat was nothing like the fights he was used to. Every strike carried lethal force. Every parry was a matter of life and death. The weapons moved faster than normal human perception, guided by force-enhanced reflexes. But Barry's perception wasn't normal human. He could see every technique, every feint, every opening, and what he saw terrified him. Dooku was toying with them, testing them. He blocked Ahsoka's strikes with almost lazy precision, countering Anakin's aggression with perfect defensive form. The Sith Lord was learning their patterns, cataloging their abilities. Your anger makes you strong, Skywalker, Dooku said conversationally while parrying a strike that should have taken his head off. But it also makes you predictable. The Jedi teach you to suppress your emotions. What if I told you that was a lie? That your true power comes from embracing your passion? Shut up! Anakin snarled, his attacks becoming more aggressive. Anakin, don't listen to him, Ahsoka warned. But Barry could see it happening. Anakin's form deteriorating, becoming wild and uncontrolled. Dooku's words were getting to him, and the Sith Lord knew it. Barry's cop instincts kicked in. This was an interrogation technique, psychological manipulation designed to provoke a response. Dooku was pushing Anakin's buttons deliberately. Anakin! Barry shouted. He's playing you! It's a tactic! Make you angry so you make mistakes! Anakin hesitated for just a moment, and Dooku struck. His blade slammed into Anakin's guard with overwhelming force, sending the Jedi stumbling backward. Before Ahsoka could react, Dooku's free hand thrust forward, and force lightning erupted from his fingertips. Ahsoka screamed as purple electricity coursed through her body. She collapsed, smoke rising from her robes. Snips! Anakin's anguish was palpable. She'll live, Dooku said coldly. If you cooperate. Tell me about the Republic's strategy for the Outer Rim offensive, and I'll let you take your Padawan and leave. Go to hell, Anakin spat. Very well. Dooku raised his hand again, but Barry was already moving. He grabbed a piece of rubble, a chunk of duracrete the size of a basketball, and threw it at super speed. The projectile moved faster than a bullet, slamming into Dooku's shoulder and spinning him around. The Sith Lord's concentration broke. Anakin lunged forward, his lightsaber blazing blue fire, and Dooku was forced onto the defensive for the first time in the fight. Barry ran to Ahsoka, checking her pulse. Still alive, but her heart rhythm was erratic. She needed medical attention immediately. He looked up to see Anakin and Dooku locked in close combat, their lightsabers crossed between them, faces inches apart. You have talent, Skywalker, Dooku said. Wasted on the Jedi. Join me. Together we could end this war. No more Republic, no more separatists. Just order. Just peace. Your peace is built on the corpses of innocents, Anakin replied. And the Republic's peace isn't? Dooku pushed Anakin back, then disengaged. Think about it. Who profits from this war continuing? Who gains more power with every battle? Ask yourself who truly controls both sides of this conflict. Before Anakin could respond, a Republic gunship roared overhead, its cannons blazing. Dooku deflected the blaster fire with contemptuous ease, but the distraction gave him pause. We'll continue this conversation another time, Dooku said. Give my regards to the Chancellor. Tell him, the plan proceeds as expected. He turned and ran, not at normal speed, but force-enhanced velocity that carried him across the battlefield faster than the clones could track. Within seconds, he'd vanished into the ruins. Barry knelt beside Ahsoka as Anakin rushed over. She needs a medic, now! Rex! Anakin shouted. Medic to my position! Clone troopers swarmed around them. A medic began treating Ahsoka's injuries while Rex coordinated the evacuation. The Separatist base was secured, their prisoners freed, but the victory felt hollow. Dooku's words echoed in Barry's mind. Tell him the plan proceeds as expected. Tell who? The Chancellor? Why would a Sith Lord send regards to the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic? Unless... Barry's blood ran cold. The micro-expression he'd seen on Palpatine's hologram. The emergency powers that benefited from the war continuing. Dooku's cryptic message. The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture so disturbing that Barry almost didn't want to see it. What if both sides of the war were being controlled by the same person? Barry? Anakin's voice pulled him back to the present. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, Barry lied. Just tired. Using the speed force here takes a lot out of me. But his mind was racing faster than his body ever could. He needed proof. Hard evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away by the mystical force. And he needed it before whoever was manipulating this war noticed that a dimensional speedster was getting too close to the truth. Because if Barry's theory was correct, then the Republic wasn't just fighting a war. They were fighting a trap. And the only person who could see it clearly was someone from outside this universe entirely. The medical bay aboard the Venator-class Star Destroyer hummed with quiet efficiency. Ahsoka lay in a bacta tank, her body suspended in the healing fluid, slowly recovering from Dooku's force lightning. Anakin stood vigil beside the tank, his expression carved from stone, and Barry could practically feel the anger radiating from him. She'll be okay, the medical droid assured them in its pleasant, emotionless tone. The burns are already healing. 2 days in bacta therapy, and she'll be combat ready. She shouldn't have been in that position at all, Anakin said quietly. I should have handled Dooku alone. If you had, you'd probably be dead, Barry replied. Dooku's been fighting longer than you've been alive. He was baiting you, pushing your emotional buttons to make you sloppy. Anakin's jaw tightened. I know his tactics. I've fought him before. And lost before based on how angry you are about it. Barry studied the Jedi's body language. The clenched fists, the rigid posture, the barely contained fury. Look, I don't have the Force, but I've been a cop long enough to recognize when someone's being manipulated. Dooku knew exactly what to say to get under your skin. He offered me power, Anakin said. Tried to convince me the Jedi are holding me back. Same speech he probably gives every Force-sensitive he encounters. Is he wrong? Anakin's eyes snapped to Barry. What? I'm not saying join the dark side or whatever, Barry clarified quickly. But are the Jedi holding you back? You're one of their best generals, right? But they don't trust you completely. I saw how the Council looked at you when they were evaluating me. Like they were waiting for you to make a mistake. Anakin turned away, but not before Barry saw the flash of pain across his face. The Council has its reasons. I was brought into the Order late, already attached to my mother, my friends. Attachment leads to fear. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to the dark side. They're just being cautious. Or they're setting you up to fail, Barry said softly. If you're constantly told you're one step away from falling, you start to believe it. You start making choices based on fear rather than trust. You sound like Palpatine, Anakin said, but there was no hostility in his voice. He's the only one who believes in me without reservation. And there it was, the connection Barry had been probing for. Palpatine had positioned himself as Anakin's unconditional supporter. The one person who didn't question or judge. Classic manipulation. Barry had seen it in cult leaders, in abusive relationships, in criminal masterminds who groomed their accomplices. Tell me about him, Barry said. The Chancellor. How did you meet? Anakin's expression softened with memory. I was 9 years old, just freed from slavery on Tatooine. Qui-Gon Jinn brought me to Coruscant to be trained as a Jedi. The Council didn't want me, said I was too old, too fearful. But Palpatine was just a senator then from Naboo. He took an interest in me, encouraged me. Over the years, he became like a father figure. And now he's Supreme Chancellor with emergency war powers. Because the Republic needed strong leadership, Anakin said defensively. The Senate was paralyzed by corruption and bureaucracy. Palpatine streamlined the process, made it possible for us to actually fight this war. Barry chose his next words carefully. Back home, I investigated a lot of organized crime. One thing I learned: when someone consolidates power during a crisis, you have to ask if they're solving the crisis or benefiting from it. You think Palpatine wants the war to continue? Anakin's voice carried warning now. I think it's worth asking questions. Dooku sent him regards. Why would a Sith Lord do that? Mockery. Mind games. That's what the Sith do. Maybe. Barry watched Ahsoka's unconscious form floating in the Bacta. Or maybe it was a message. A confirmation that something's proceeding as planned. Anakin turned fully toward Barry, and for the first time, there was genuine anger in his gaze. Be very careful what you're suggesting. Palpatine has been nothing but loyal to the Republic. He's working to end this war, not prolong it. Then why do his emergency powers only last until the war ends? Barry pressed, his detective instincts telling him he was close to something important. That creates a perverse incentive. The moment peace is achieved, he loses authority. That's how emergency powers work. They're temporary measures. In theory, but I've seen too many temporary measures become permanent. Barry moved closer, lowering his voice. Anakin, I'm not trying to attack someone you care about, but I'm from outside this galaxy. I can see patterns that maybe you're too close to notice, and every instinct I have says something is very wrong with this war. Your instincts don't understand the Force, Anakin said coldly. Or the sacrifices we're making to preserve freedom. Thousands of Jedi are dying. Millions of clones. Entire planets are being devastated. You think Palpatine orchestrated all that? I think someone did. The separatist movements are too coordinated. The Republic responses are always just barely sufficient. It's like watching two boxers who've choreographed their fight. Lots of action, lots of spectacle, but neither side commits to a knockout blow. Anakin's hand moved to his lightsaber, and Barry tensed. But the Jedi didn't ignite the weapon. Instead, he took a deep breath, visibly forcing himself to calm down. You've been here less than a week, Anakin said finally. You don't understand our galaxy, our politics, our war. The Force guides us. Master Yoda, Master Windu, they're the wisest beings alive. If something was wrong, they would sense it. Unless whoever's behind it knows how to hide from the Force, Barry replied. You said yourself that Grievous is hard to predict because he's part machine. I'm hard to read because I'm from another dimension. What if there's a Sith Lord who's mastered concealing his presence? That would require... Anakin trailed off, his expression troubled. That would require incredible skill and patience. Years of deception. Exactly. Someone playing the long game. Barry pulled out a small device, a holographic recorder he'd borrowed from Rex. I want to investigate, quietly. Look into Senate records, financial transactions, communications patterns. The kind of forensic analysis I'd do for any complex criminal conspiracy. If you're caught investigating the Chancellor, the Council will have you arrested. Or worse. Then help me do it carefully. Barry met Anakin's eyes. Look, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Palpatine is exactly what he appears to be. A dedicated public servant trying to save the Republic. But if I'm right, and we don't investigate, we're letting a conspiracy destroy your entire galaxy. Can you live with that? Anakin was silent for a long moment, staring at Ahsoka's healing form. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. If you're wrong about him, if you're accusing an innocent man, the damage to the Republic could be catastrophic. Palpatine's leadership is the only thing holding us together. And if I'm right, and we do nothing, what then? The question hung between them like a blade. Finally, Anakin sighed. You have 48 hours, he said. Do your investigation quietly. Don't involve other Jedi. If you find something concrete, actual evidence, not just suspicious patterns, bring it to me first. I'll take it to the Council. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If this blows up in our faces, we'll both be court-martialed. Anakin started to leave, then paused. And Barry? Palpatine has been good to me. If you destroy his reputation over nothing, you and I are going to have problems. Understood. After Anakin left, Barry stood alone in the medical bay, his mind already racing through investigative strategies. He needed access to Senate databases, communication logs, financial records. the kind of digital forensics he'd done hundreds of times at CCPD. The door hissed open and Rex entered, his helmet tucked under one arm. "Heard you got clearance to poke around Senate business," Rex said. "Word travels fast among the 501st. How did you—" "General Skywalker asked me to assist you, discreetly." Rex pulled out a data chip. "This contains my security clearance codes. It'll get you into most Republic databases without triggering alerts. But if you access anything related to the Chancellor's office, even I can't protect you from the consequences." Barry took the chip. "Why are you helping me?" Rex was quiet for a moment. "I'm a soldier. I follow orders, but I'm not blind. There are things about this war that don't add up. Why we're always deployed in just enough strength to achieve costly victories, never overwhelming force. Why certain battles seem designed to produce maximum casualties on both sides. Why our intel is sometimes too good, sometimes too bad, but never just right. You've noticed the patterns too." "I'm a clone, not a fool," Rex said. "But the Jedi trust the Chancellor, so we trust the Chancellor. If you can prove something's wrong—" He met Barry's eyes. "Then maybe we're fighting for the wrong side. And that's something I need to know." Barry spent the next 6 hours in his assigned quarters, using Rex's clearance codes to dive into Republic databases. The Speed Force gave him enhanced cognitive processing. He could review documents in seconds that would take normal people hours. Financial records, troop deployments, Senate voting patterns, all flowing through his consciousness at super speed, and patterns emerged, disturbing patterns. Palpatine had been a relatively minor senator before the Naboo crisis that elevated him to Supreme Chancellor. But in the years before that crisis, he'd made strategic investments in military contractors, shipyards, weapons manufacturers, companies that were now profiting enormously from the Clone Wars. The investments were hidden behind layers of shell corporations and proxy accounts, but Barry had traced money laundering schemes before. Follow the credits, find the criminal. That was basic detective work. Then there were the emergency powers votes. Each one had passed with suspiciously convenient timing, right after a major separatist victory that terrified the Senate into granting more authority. The victories themselves followed patterns, coordinated, devastating, but never quite enough to actually win the war. And the Jedi deployment records. Barry cross-referenced them with separatist attack patterns and found something chilling. Jedi were consistently sent to situations where they'd be isolated, outnumbered, or facing overwhelming odds. Not in ways that looked deliberately murderous, but in ways that ensured maximum attrition. Someone was slowly bleeding the Jedi Order to death. Barry's hands were shaking as he compiled the evidence. It was circumstantial, nothing that would hold up in court back home, but it painted a picture of long-term strategic manipulation. Someone had been positioning pieces on the board for years, maybe decades. His comlink chirped. Anakin's voice came through, tight with tension. "Barry, get to the bridge. Now. We've received new orders from the Chancellor. We're being deployed to Mandalore." "What's on Mandalore?" "A Sith Lord named Maul has taken over. He's holding the Duchess hostage. Palpatine wants us to intervene immediately. But something feels wrong about this. The timing, the urgency." Anakin's voice dropped. "Get up here. I want you to look at these orders with your investigator's eye." Barry was already moving, the data chip clutched in his hand. As he ran through the corridors at enhanced speed, his mind raced faster than his feet. Mandalore, a warrior culture that had stayed neutral in the Clone Wars. If they were drawn into the conflict, it would open an entire new front. More battles, more casualties, more emergency powers needed to coordinate the expanded war. The patterns were becoming clearer, and with each new piece of evidence, Barry's theory solidified into terrible certainty. Someone was orchestrating this entire war from both sides. Someone with access to Republic and Separatist intelligence. Someone with the patience to manipulate galactic politics over decades. Someone who stood to gain everything if the war continued and the Jedi were destroyed. Barry reached the bridge to find Anakin studying a holographic tactical display, his expression dark. "Look at this deployment order," Anakin said without preamble. "We're supposed to take a small strike force to Mandalore. Leave most of the 501st here to hold Ryloth. Does that make sense to you?" Barry examined the orders, his enhanced perception noting every detail. "You're being sent to fight a Sith Lord with minimal support. If it's a trap, you'll be isolated and vulnerable. Exactly what I thought. Anakin's jaw clenched. But these orders come directly from Palpatine. If I refuse, I'm defying the Supreme Chancellor during wartime. That's treason. Or it's survival. Barry pulled out his data chip. Anakin, I found something. A lot of somethings. Financial connections, deployment patterns, strategic manipulations. I need you to look at this with an open mind. Show me. Barry uploaded the data to the tactical display. Documents and charts replaced the Mandalore mission specs. He walked Anakin through it all. The investments, the voting patterns, the Jedi deployment statistics. With each new piece of evidence, Anakin's expression grew darker. This could be coincidence, Anakin said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. Correlation doesn't prove causation. In isolation, yes. But this many coincidences, all benefiting the same person? Barry shook his head. I've investigated organized crime for years. This is what conspiracy looks like. Layers of deniability, but underlying patterns that reveal the truth. Anakin stared at the data for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. If you're right, if Palpatine is somehow involved in prolonging the war, then we've been used. The entire Jedi Order, the clones, millions of civilians. We've been pawns in someone else's game. I think it's worse than that, Barry said quietly. I think the goal isn't just to prolong the war. I think someone's trying to destroy the Jedi entirely. Look at the casualty rates. You're losing Jedi faster than new ones can be trained. At this rate, in another year or two, the Order will be too weak to resist anything. Resist what? I don't know yet. But Dooku said something about the plan proceeds as expected. What if the plan is to weaken the Jedi, consolidate power through emergency measures? And then... Barry trailed off, the implications too horrifying to voice. Then eliminate the survivors and establish a dictatorship, Anakin finished. His hand moved to his lightsaber. We need to take this to the Council, now. Will they listen? You said yourself they don't always trust you. They'll have to listen to evidence. Anakin began downloading the data Barry had compiled. This is bigger than my relationship with Palpatine. If the Republic is being manipulated... The bridge door hissed open, and Admiral Yularen entered with several clone officers. His expression was grave. General Skywalker, I've just received updated orders. You're to depart for Mandalore immediately with Commander Tano and a strike team. The Chancellor has expressly requested your personal involvement. Ahsoka's still in Bacta, Anakin protested. The orders specify that she's essential to the mission. Something about Mandalorian respect for her previous service there. Yularen's tone suggested he found the orders as suspicious as Anakin did. Sir, if I may speak freely? Go ahead, Admiral. These orders don't feel right. Sending our best Jedi into a situation with minimal support, while Separatist forces are massing in 3 adjacent sectors. Tactically, it's unsound. Barry felt the pieces clicking into place. It's a trap. Whoever's running this wants Anakin isolated and vulnerable. Maybe they want him captured. Maybe they want him turned. Either way, this mission is designed to remove him from the board. Or test his loyalty, Anakin said slowly. If I refuse the Chancellor's direct orders, I prove I'm not trustworthy. If I go and get killed, I'm eliminated. If I go and succeed, he paused. What would success look like? Defeating Maul, saving the Duchess? Or proving you're willing to follow orders without question, Barry replied. Showing you'll walk into obvious danger because the Chancellor commands it. Anakin and Barry exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Barry had found the evidence. Anakin had the authority to act on it. Together, they might actually expose whatever conspiracy was destroying the Republic from within. But first, they had to survive whatever trap was waiting on Mandalore. Admiral, Anakin said, his voice carrying new authority, delay our departure by 6 hours. Tell the Chancellor we're dealing with unexpected maintenance issues. That'll give us time to brief the Council and coordinate a proper response. Yes, sir. After Yularen left, Anakin turned to Barry. You're coming to Coruscant with me. The Council needs to hear your evidence directly. And if Palpatine is truly behind this..." His expression hardened. "Then the Republic is already dead. We just haven't buried it yet." Barry nodded grimly. His investigation had uncovered the outline of a conspiracy that spanned the galaxy. Now came the hard part, convincing people to see what they'd been conditioned to ignore. The trap was closing around the Jedi Order, and a speedster from another dimension might be their only chance to escape it. The Jedi Temple rose from Coruscant's cityscape like a monument to 10,000 years of history, its towers reaching toward the perpetual twilight sky. Barry stood in the council chamber once more, but this time the atmosphere was different. Tense. Hostile. The holographic data he'd compiled floated between the council members, each document a damning piece of the puzzle he'd assembled. "Circumstantial evidence this is," Yoda said, his ancient eyes troubled. "Prove intent, it does not." "Master Yoda, with respect, the patterns are too consistent to be coincidence," Barry argued. He'd been presenting his case for 20 minutes, feeling like a forensic analyst testifying before a skeptical jury. Palpatine made investments in military contractors years before the war started. He's consolidated power through emergency measures that only remain valid while the war continues. Jedi are being deployed in ways that maximize casualties. These aren't random occurrences. "You're accusing the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic of treason," Mace Windu said, his voice like thunder. "Based on financial records and deployment statistics, the Chancellor has been our ally for over a decade. Which makes him the perfect conspirator," Barry countered. "He's above suspicion. Everyone trusts him. That's exactly how long-term conspiracies work. You build trust while positioning your pieces." "Dooku's message," Anakin added, standing beside Barry. "He told me to give Palpatine his regards and said, 'The plan proceeds as expected.' Why would a Sith Lord send regards to the Republic's leader unless they were working together?" "Psychological warfare," Plo Koon suggested. "Trying to sow discord between the Jedi and our political leadership. Classic Sith manipulation." "Or it was the truth," Barry said. "Look at the evidence without bias. If this were anyone else, anyone without Palpatine's reputation, you'd consider it worth investigating, right?" The council exchanged glances, a conversation happening in looks and force impressions that Barry couldn't perceive. Finally, Mace Windu spoke. "The Council will consider your evidence. But understand, young Allen, accusing the Chancellor without absolute proof could fracture the Republic at a critical moment. The Senate barely holds together as it is. If we move against Palpatine and you're wrong, the political damage would be catastrophic. And if we don't move and he's right, the Jedi Order will be destroyed," Anakin said flatly. "I know Palpatine better than anyone here. I want Barry to be wrong, but I can't ignore this evidence." "Your personal feelings cloud your judgment," Coyote-Mundi observed. "You wish to believe the Chancellor is guilty because it would justify your own doubts about him." "That's not fair." "Enough," Yoda commanded, his voice carrying unexpected force. "Investigate. We must. But carefully. If the Chancellor is indeed manipulating this war, powerful beyond measure he has become, confront him directly. We cannot. Not yet." "Then what do you propose?" Barry asked. "The Force. We will trust," Yoda said. "Meditate on this matter, the Council will. Seek the will of the Force. If deception surrounds the Chancellor, reveal itself it will." Barry felt frustration rising. "The Force can be blocked. Whoever's behind this has been hiding from the Force for years. You need hard evidence, not mystical meditation." "The Force is our guide," Mace said coldly. "You, who have no connection to it, cannot understand its wisdom. I understand evidence, I understand patterns, and I understand that if you only look through one lens, you'll miss what's hiding in your blind spot." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Barry could see the council members dividing into factions, those who were considering his evidence, and those who saw him as a threat to their worldview. "We will place the Chancellor under discreet observation," Mace decided. "Master Kenobi will monitor his activities without revealing suspicion. Meanwhile, Anakin will proceed with the Mandalore mission as ordered. If it is a trap, we'll spring it and see who set it." You're using me as bait, Anakin said. We're using you as a Jedi, Mace corrected. Trust in the Force, Skywalker. It will guide you through whatever dangers await. Barry wanted to scream. They were walking into an obvious trap, relying on mystical energy that had already been compromised. But he was an outsider here. The Council had made their decision. I'm going with him, Barry said. To Mandalore. My speed gives me advantages the Force doesn't provide. If it's a trap, maybe I can see it coming. Very well, Yoda said after a moment's consideration. But remember, Barry Allen, trust in yourself alone you do. The Jedi. In the Force we trust. Different paths these are. See which proves wiser. We shall. As they left the council chamber, Barry felt Anakin's barely controlled anger radiating beside him. They didn't listen, Anakin said quietly. I gave them evidence, and they chose meditation over action. They're scared, Barry replied. If I'm right, it means their entire worldview is compromised. The Force they've trusted for millennia has been fooled. That's a hard thing to accept. They reached the temple's landing platform, where a Republic cruiser waited to transport them to Mandalore. Ahsoka was already there, her burns healed, but her movements still slightly stiff from the Bacta treatment. I heard about the council meeting, she said. Are they taking your evidence seriously? They're considering it, Anakin said, which wasn't quite a lie. But we're still going to Mandalore. Orders are orders. Into an obvious trap, Ahsoka muttered. Great. The journey through hyperspace gave Barry time to think. He sat in the cruiser's small cabin, his mind racing through scenarios and contingencies. Every instinct told him they were walking into something catastrophic. But without the Council's full support, they had limited options. His comlink chirped. Rex's voice came through, encrypted and cautious. Barry, I've been monitoring Senate communications like you asked. Something big just happened. The Chancellor requested an emergency session to discuss enhanced security measures. He's pushing for more executive authority. Let me guess, Barry said. Right after we depart for Mandalore? So we can't testify against the measure? Exactly. It's like he knew you'd present evidence to the Council and timed his move accordingly. Barry's blood ran cold. Someone had been watching, listening. They'd known about his investigation and adapted in real time. Rex, how many people knew about my meeting with the Council? Just the Council members, you and General Skywalker. Why? Because Palpatine is reacting to it, which means either he has the Council chamber bugged, or someone on the Council is feeding him information. The implications were staggering. If Palpatine had infiltrated the Council itself, then the Jedi's most secure deliberations had been compromised for who knows how long. Barry, Rex said carefully. If the Chancellor is the Sith Lord you think he is, and he knows you're investigating him, you're not walking into a trap on Mandalore. You're already in one. The cruiser dropped out of hyperspace, and Mandalore appeared through the viewport, a desert world marked by massive dome cities that preserved atmosphere and water. It had once been a warrior culture that had nearly destroyed itself in civil wars, now attempting to maintain neutrality while the galaxy burned around it. Picking up some unusual readings, the pilot reported. Massive energy signatures in the capital city. Looks like a battle's already underway. They descended through atmospheric turbulence to find Sundari, Mandalore's capital, under siege. Not by separatist forces, but by Mandalorian warriors in black armor. Members of Death Watch, a terrorist organization that opposed the pacifist government. And standing at the center of it all, visible even from altitude, was a figure that made Anakin curse. Maul. The former Sith Lord was unmistakable. Red and black tattooed skin, horned head, dual-bladed lightsaber ignited and carving through Mandalorian defenders. But something was different about him. More focused, more dangerous. The madness that had defined him after his apparent death seemed to have crystallized into cold purpose. That's the Sith Lord who killed Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin said, his voice tight. He's supposed to be dead. Looks pretty lively to me, Barry observed. And he's got an army. This isn't just a hostage situation, it's a coup. The cruiser landed in a secure zone, and they disembarked into chaos. Mandalorian guards in ceremonial armor fought desperately against Death Watch warriors. The clash of metal and the distinctive crack of Mandalorian blasters filled the air. "The Duchess is in the palace," a guard captain informed them, blood streaming from a cut on his temple. "Maul has her trapped in the throne room. We can't break through his defenses." "We'll get her out," Anakin promised. They fought their way through the city, lightsabers blazing against Death Watch attackers. Barry ran at enhanced speed, disarming warriors before they could fire, creating openings for Anakin and Ahsoka to exploit. The Speed Force connection was stronger here. Something about Mandalore's magnetic field seemed to interfere less with dimensional energies. They reached the palace to find it defended by dozens of Mandalorian supercommandos, elite warriors whose armor and weapons made them formidable even against Jedi. Barry watched Anakin and Ahsoka deflect blaster fire, their lightsabers moving in defensive patterns. But the sheer volume of fire was overwhelming. "I can get through," Barry said. "Clear a path at super speed." "Do it," Anakin ordered. Barry ran, his enhanced velocity making him effectively invisible to the commandos' targeting systems. He disarmed them one by one, moving faster than their neural reflexes could process. Within seconds, the path to the throne room was clear. They burst through the massive doors to find Maul waiting, his yellow eyes fixed on them with predatory intensity. Duchess Satine knelt beside him, a blade at her throat held by a Death Watch lieutenant. "Anakin Skywalker," Maul said, his voice like gravel. "And his apprentice. How expected." "Let the Duchess go, Maul," Anakin demanded. "This is between you and us." "Is it?" Maul's smile was cruel. "Or is this exactly what was planned? You, sent here. Me, waiting." "The pieces moving as they were always meant to move." Barry's detective instincts screamed. "You're working with someone. This whole coup, it's orchestrated." Maul's eyes shifted to Barry, and something like recognition flickered in their depths. "The dimensional traveler. Yes, I was told about you. The one who sees patterns. Tell me, Speedster, do you see the pattern now?" "You're the distraction," Barry said, pieces clicking into place. "You take over Mandalore, we're sent to stop you, and while you're here, the Chancellor moves against the Jedi," Maul finished. "Not immediately, not obviously, but one more step in a very long game. A game my former master plays with exquisite patience." "Your former master?" Ahsoka asked. "Darth Sidious," Maul spat the name like poison. "The Sith Lord who truly controls this war. The one you call—" He never finished the sentence. A pulse of dark-side energy erupted through the throne room, and Maul screamed, clutching his head. Barry felt it too, not through the Force, but through the Speed Force's dimensional sensitivity. A massive concentration of power, reaching across space to silence Maul before he could reveal too much. When the pulse faded, Maul was on his knees, blood trickling from his nose. But his eyes held defiant fury. "He fears you learning the truth," Maul gasped. "But it's too late. The trap is already sprung. Order 66 awaits, and all your Jedi will burn." "What's Order 66? Barry demanded. Maul laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Ask the clones. It's written into their genetic code. A single command that will turn your loyal soldiers into executioners." Anakin's face went pale. "That's impossible." "The clones are loyal. The clones are programmed," Maul interrupted. "Created by Sith design. When Sidious gives the order, they will kill every Jedi in the galaxy. And there's nothing you can do to stop it." Barry's mind raced. The clone army, created on Kamino, commissioned by... He realized he didn't actually know who had commissioned them. The Jedi had simply accepted them as a gift from the Republic. A gift that might be a weapon aimed at their hearts. "We need to warn the Council," Ahsoka said urgently. But Maul was already moving, his lightsaber igniting. "First, you'll have to survive me, and unlike my master, I don't plan in shadows. I kill face to face." Maul's lightsaber blazed to life. A double-bladed weapon that spun in his hands like a wheel of crimson fire. He launched himself at Anakin with feral speed, and the throne room erupted into violence. Anakin met the attack, his blue blade clashing against Maul's red in a shower of sparks. Ahsoka moved to flank, her green lightsaber seeking openings in Maul's defense. Barry had seen lightsaber combat before, but this was different. Maul fought with brutal efficiency, every movement designed to kill. He wasn't testing them like Dooku had. He was trying to end this quickly. The Death Watch lieutenant holding Duchess Satine tried to use the distraction to escape with his hostage. Barry moved at super speed, covering the distance in a heartbeat. He grabbed the warrior's wrist, twisted the blade away from Satine's throat, and delivered a speed-enhanced strike that sent the lieutenant crashing into the wall, unconscious. "Go!" Barry told Satine. "Get to safety!" The Duchess fled, but Maul's eyes tracked her movement. His hand thrust out, and Barry felt that invisible force grip, the same one Dooku had used. Satine was yanked backward, lifted into the air, her throat constricting. "No!" Anakin screamed. But Barry was already running. He grabbed Satine mid-air, his momentum carrying both of them out of Maul's force grip. They tumbled across the floor, and Barry shielded her with his body as debris rained down from a force-shattered pillar. "Thank you," Satine gasped. "Stay down," Barry replied. Then he was moving again. Maul had driven Anakin and Ahsoka back, his dual blade creating a defensive barrier they couldn't penetrate. The Sith Lord was toying with them now, his earlier urgency replaced by cruel confidence. "Your master died on my blade," Maul told Anakin conversationally, blocking a strike aimed at his head. "Qui-Gon Jinn." I remember the look in his eyes when the plasma pierced his heart. Surprise. Betrayal. As if the Force itself had abandoned him. "Shut up!" Anakin's attacks became wild, aggressive. "There it is," Maul laughed. "The anger, the hate. You're already half-fallen, Skywalker. Sidious chose well when he marked you for corruption." Barry saw the psychological warfare working. Maul was pushing Anakin's buttons just like Dooku had, trying to make him reckless. But this time, Barry could do something about it. He ran at Maul from behind, building velocity, and delivered a super-speed punch to the Sith Lord's kidney. The impact sent Maul stumbling forward, his concentration breaking. Anakin's lightsaber slashed downward, and one half of Maul's double blade was severed, clattering across the floor. Maul spun, his remaining blade barely catching Barry's next attack. The Sith Lord's eyes widened fractionally, surprised that a non-Force user could threaten him. "You're fast," Maul acknowledged, "but speed alone won't save you from the dark side." He unleashed Force lightning, purple electricity arcing toward Barry. But Barry had faced this before from Dooku. He vibrated at super speed, phasing partially out of normal reality, and the lightning passed through him like he was a ghost. "Can't touch what you can't catch," Barry said. The three of them, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Barry, coordinated their assault. Lightsabers high and low. Barry darting in at unpredictable angles. Maul was skilled, but he couldn't defend against attacks from multiple dimensions simultaneously. A slash from Ahsoka opened a cut across Maul's shoulder. Anakin's blade scored his thigh. Barry's fist connected with his jaw at relativistic speed, and Maul's head snapped back. The Sith Lord staggered, blood streaming from multiple wounds, but his eyes held no fear, only grim satisfaction. "It doesn't matter," Maul said, his voice thick with blood. "Kill me. Spare me. The outcome is the same. Sidious has already won. By now, his emergency powers have been expanded. The Senate has given him authority over the Jedi Order itself. And when he's ready..." Maul's smile was terrible. "Order 66 will execute, and your precious order will fall." "Who is he?" Barry demanded. "Give us a name." "Look to the Senate," Maul said. "To the kindly grandfather who offers wisdom and support. To the patient spider at the center of the web." He laughed again, the sound echoing off the throne room walls. "But you already know, don't you, Speedster? Your evidence has shown you the truth. The question is whether anyone will believe it before it's too late." Mandalorian guards burst into the throne room, their weapons trained on Maul. The Sith Lord didn't resist as they placed him in stun cuffs, his eyes never leaving Anakin's face. "Tell Sidious I kept the Jedi busy as ordered," Maul said as they dragged him away. "But tell him also that I'm done being his pawn. The next time we meet, Master, I'm coming for you." The guards hauled him into custody, and silence fell over the throne room. Duchess Satine emerged from cover. Shaken but alive, Mandalore was secure. The mission was technically a success, but Barry felt no victory, only growing dread. "We need to contact the Council," Ahsoka said urgently. "Warn them about Order 66. Anakin activated his comlink. "Master Windu, come in. This is urgent." Static. Then Mace Windu's hologram appeared, his expression grave. "Anakin, I'm afraid I have troubling news. The Senate has just passed the Jedi Security Act. As of 1 hour ago, all Jedi operations require explicit approval from the Chancellor's office. We are effectively under his direct command." "Master, that's exactly what we warned you about," Anakin said. "Palpatine is consolidating control." "The Council is aware," Mace interrupted. "We have decided to act. Master Yoda is returning from the Outer Rim. Once he arrives, we will confront the Chancellor together and demand he relinquish his emergency powers. If he refuses, you'll arrest him," Barry finished. "And if he's really a Sith Lord, you'll have a fight on your hands." Mace's hologram turned to Barry. "Your evidence was convincing enough that we can no longer ignore the possibility, but we must handle this carefully. The Republic cannot survive open conflict between the Jedi and the Chancellor." "The Republic can't survive a Sith Lord controlling it from within," Barry countered. "Master Windu, Maul mentioned something called Order 66. He said it's programmed into the clones' genetic code, a command that will make them kill all Jedi." Mace's expression darkened. "We will investigate. In the meantime, return to Coruscant immediately. The confrontation with Palpatine must happen soon, before he realizes we know the truth." The hologram flickered out. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Barry stood in the throne room, the weight of what was coming pressing down on them. "This is it," Anakin said quietly. "Everything comes down to what happens next. Either we're right and we save the Republic by exposing a Sith Lord, or we're wrong and we destroy the Republic by attacking its legitimate leader." "We're right," Barry said with certainty. "Every piece of evidence points to it. Palpatine is Darth Sidious. He's been playing both sides of this war, manipulating the galaxy towards some endgame. And that endgame involves destroying the Jedi." "Then we stop him," Ahsoka said, her hand on her lightsaber. "Whatever it takes." They boarded the Republic cruiser and jumped to hyperspace, racing back toward Coruscant. Barry spent the journey reviewing everything he knew, preparing for what amounted to the most important confrontation of his life. Back home, he'd faced down speedsters and gods. But this was different. This was exposing a conspiracy that had been decades in the making, convincing people to see what they'd been conditioned to ignore. As Coruscant appeared through the viewport, that eternal city planet, Jewel of the Republic, Barry felt the speed force surge within him, stronger now, as if sensing the approaching crisis. The dimensional barriers that had weakened his connection were thinning. Maybe it was because he was finally accepting this wasn't his universe, wasn't his fight in the traditional sense. But it was a fight that needed fighting, and Barry Allen had never walked away from someone who needed help. They landed at the Jedi Temple to find it in controlled chaos. Jedi were returning from across the galaxy, summoned by an emergency recall. Masters Barry had never seen before moved through the halls with grim purpose. Master Yoda had returned. The council convened an emergency session, and this time, the atmosphere was electric with tension. The 12 masters sat in their traditional positions, but their usual calm had been replaced by barely contained urgency. "Evidence, we have reviewed," Yoda said without preamble. Barry Allen's investigation, thorough it was, financial connections, deployment patterns, strategic manipulations, circumstantial alone, each piece, together. The ancient Jedi Master's eyes were troubled. Together, a pattern they reveal. A pattern of deception. "We have also investigated Order 66, Mace Windu continued. "It exists. A command buried deep in the clone troopers' conditioning protocols. We found it in the Camino files, a contingency order that would compel all clone forces to execute their Jedi commanders upon activation." The council chamber fell silent. Even the Jedi who had been most skeptical of Barry's evidence looked shaken. "Who commissioned the clone army?" Barry asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. "That's the disturbing part," Obi-Wan Kenobi replied. It was commissioned by a Jedi Master named Sifo Dyas, who died before the Clone Wars even began. But the financial records show continued oversight and funding from... He paused, as if saying it aloud would make it irrevocably real. From accounts connected to Chancellor Palpatine. He created both armies, Barry said, pieces falling into place. The Republic's clone army and the Separatist droid army. He controls both sides of the war. He can make it last as long as he wants, bleeding the Jedi until you're too weak to resist. To what end? Ki-Adi-Mundi demanded. What does he gain from destroying the Jedi? Power, Mace said heavily. Absolute power. With the Jedi gone and emergency authorities in place, he could declare himself emperor, transform the Republic into a dictatorship. The Galactic Empire, Barry breathed, remembering history lessons about how democracies died. Not with a bang, but with applause for security. We must act, Yoda declared, rising from his seat despite his age. Confront the Chancellor, we will. If he is indeed Darth Sidious, arrest him we must. If he resists. The ancient Jedi's expression hardened. Then the Republic is already lost, and we fight to save what we can. I'm coming with you, Barry said immediately. This is Jedi business, Mace replied. This is galactic business, Barry countered. And I'm the only one who can move fast enough to react if Palpatine tries something. You need every advantage you can get. Yoda studied Barry for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Right, he is. Need every advantage, we do. But Barry Allen, if fight the Chancellor we must, stay back you should. His power, beyond your comprehension it may be. I've fought plenty of things beyond my comprehension, Barry said. It's kind of my specialty. Within the hour, a Jedi strike team assembled in the temple hangar. Mace Windu would lead, accompanied by 3 other council masters, Kit Fisto, Agan Kolar, and Saesee Tiin. Yoda would remain at the temple to coordinate their response if things went wrong. Anakin had been ordered to stay behind as well, though Barry could see the frustration in every line of his body. Be careful, Anakin said to Barry as the strike team prepared to depart. If Palpatine really is Sidious, he's been hiding his power for decades. He won't go down easily. I know, Barry replied, but someone has to expose the truth. Might as well be the guy who's too stupid to know when he's outmatched. He tried to make it sound lighthearted, but Anakin didn't smile. Barry, Anakin said quietly, thank you for investigating this, for having the courage to question what everyone else accepted. If you hadn't come to our galaxy, the Jedi would have walked into a genocide, Barry finished. I know. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. The strike team boarded a Republic gunship, and Barry settled in beside the Jedi Masters. They were silent during the short flight to the Senate building, each preparing in their own way for what was coming. Barry checked his connection to the Speed Force one last time. It was strong now, stronger than it had been since he'd arrived in this universe, as if the approaching confrontation had burned away the dimensional interference. He could feel that infinite velocity waiting to be tapped, ready to move faster than thought itself. He was going to need it. The Senate building loomed ahead, its massive dome a symbol of democratic governance. But Barry knew the truth now. That symbol had been hollowed out from within, transformed into a facade that concealed something dark and patient and utterly ruthless. They were about to confront the most dangerous opponent Barry had ever faced, and the fate of an entire galaxy hung in the balance. The office of the Supreme Chancellor was surprisingly modest, refined but not ostentatious, decorated with art from across the galaxy. Palpatine sat behind his desk, reviewing holographic documents, the picture of a dedicated public servant working late into the evening. He looked up as the Jedi entered, and his expression shifted to grandfatherly concern. Master Windu, this is unexpected. Is something wrong? Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, Mace said formally. The Jedi Council has uncovered evidence of a conspiracy. Financial manipulations, strategic sabotage, and a plot to destroy the Jedi Order. We're here to ask you to voluntarily relinquish your emergency powers and submit to questioning. For a moment, Palpatine simply stared. Then he smiled, the mask finally dropping, and Barry saw the predator that had been hiding beneath the surface all along. At last, Palpatine said, his voice no longer warm but cold as deep space. "I was wondering how long it would take. The Force clouded your vision for so long, but it seems you had help." His eyes fixed on Barry. The dimensional traveler. The one variable I couldn't fully account for. How irritating. Lightning erupted from his fingertips. Barry moved at super speed, grabbing Kit Fisto and yanking him out of the path of the attack. But Aegon Kohler and Saesee Tiin weren't so lucky. The Force lightning caught them squarely, and they collapsed, smoke rising from their robes. Palpatine's transformation was complete. The kindly Chancellor was gone, replaced by a Sith Lord whose power made the room crackle with dark-side energy. His eyes had turned yellow, his face contorted with malevolent fury. "I am Darth Sidious," he declared, his voice resonating with power. "I have been every voice you've ever heard inside your head. I have shaped this galaxy for decades, and now, finally, the Jedi will fall." Mace and Kit Fisto ignited their lightsabers and attacked. Barry ran, his speed making him a crimson blur as he tried to flank Palpatine. But the Sith Lord moved with impossible agility, Force-enhanced reflexes allowing him to fight 3 opponents simultaneously. Their battle spilled out onto the Chancellor's private balcony, high above Coruscant's endless cityscape. Wind whipped around them as lightsabers clashed against Force lightning, as speed met precognition, as decades of planning collided with desperate resistance. Barry landed hit after hit, his super speed punches striking faster than Palpatine could fully defend. But each blow seemed to do minimal damage. Sidious was protecting himself with the Force, his power incomprehensible. "You cannot stop what is already in motion," Sidious screamed, unleashing a wave of Force energy that sent Kit Fisto tumbling over the balcony's edge. Only Mace's quick grab with the Force saved the Jedi Master from a fatal fall. It came down to Mace Windu and Barry Allen against Darth Sidious, while the lights of Coruscant glittered below like indifferent stars. Mace's lightsaber found an opening, scoring a hit across Sidious's arm. The Sith Lord howled in pain and rage, and Barry saw his opportunity. He ran faster than he'd ever run in this universe, tapping into the Speed Force's full power, and delivered a strike at relativistic velocity. Sidious flew backward, crashing through his office window, his Sith lightning dying as unconsciousness claimed him. It was over, or it should have been. But as Republic guards swarmed the Chancellor's office, as Mace Windu placed Palpatine under arrest, as news of the Sith Lord's exposure spread across Coruscant, Barry felt no relief, only exhaustion and a strange sense of incompletion. He had prevented Order 66. The conspiracy was exposed. The Jedi would survive. But he was still trapped in this universe. The Speed Force connection just strong enough to keep him here, but not strong enough to send him home. 3 days later, Barry stood in the Jedi Temple, watching dawn break over Coruscant. Palpatine was imprisoned, awaiting trial. The Senate was in chaos as the depth of the manipulation became clear. The Clone Wars were ending, both sides of the conflict leaderless and confused now that their puppet master had been exposed. "You saved us," Yoda said, joining Barry at the window. "The galaxy you saved. Grateful the Jedi are. Forever." "I just did what I do," Barry replied. "Saw a pattern, investigated, exposed the truth. Same thing I'd do back home." "Home," Yoda repeated thoughtfully. "Still seek it, you do." "Yeah. I've got people who need me, my own battles to fight." Barry smiled. "But I'm glad I could help here, even if it was an accident." "No accidents. The Force knows," Yoda said. "Brought here for a reason you were. Saved the Jedi Order, that reason was. But also," the Ancient Master's eyes twinkled, "reminded us that the Force, not infallible it is. That evidence and investigation, value they have. A lesson we needed to learn." Anakin and Ahsoka found him later, both wearing expressions of relief mixed with lingering shock at how close they'd come to annihilation. "The Council says they're working on a way to send you home," Anakin reported. "Something about using the Force to amplify your Speed Force connection, create a dimensional bridge." "Will it work?" Barry asked. "Honestly, we have no idea, but Master Yoda seems confident." It took another week of preparation, but finally, Barry stood in the temple's meditation chamber, surrounded by Jedi Masters channeling the Force in complex patterns. He felt it, the Speed Force responding to their mystical energy, the dimensional barriers thinning. "Thank you," he told them all, "for trusting me, for listening, for being willing to question what you'd always believed." "We should thank you," Mace Windu replied, the closest thing to warmth Barry had ever heard in his voice. "The Force is powerful, but it is not omniscient. We forgot that. You reminded us." "May the Force be with you, Barry Allen," Yoda said, "and may your speed carry you safely home." Barry tapped into the Speed Force, feeling it surge stronger than ever, amplified by the Jedi's collective power. He ran, building velocity, and reality began to tear around him. The meditation chamber blurred, then shattered into fragments of light and color. He was moving between dimensions, racing through the spaces between universes, and somewhere ahead, distant but growing closer, he felt the familiar resonance of his own reality calling him back. Barry Allen, the Flash, had saved a galaxy far, far away. Now, he was going home. Behind him, in a galaxy that would never forget the speedster from another dimension, the Jedi began rebuilding as the war was over. May the Force be with you. More stories await.